Hello everyone! Welcome back to our channel. Today, we're diving into the fascinating world of Oklahoma, the 46th state of the United States of America. Did you know that Oklahoma is derived from the Choctaw words Okla, meaning people, and Humma, meaning red? It's a fitting name, as the state is home to a diverse population. Oklahoma is a state rich in history, from its early days as a territory to its eventual statehood in 1907. The state's geography is just as intriguing, with its rolling plains, towering mountains, and vast prairies. Oklahoma is also a state of contrasts, with a mix of urban centers and rural communities. The state's economy is driven by a variety of industries, including energy, agriculture, and tourism. Oklahoma is a state of education, with a strong public education system and several renowned universities. It's also a state of culture, with a rich history of music, art, and literature. Oklahoma is a state of media, with a thriving journalism industry and a rich history of storytelling. It's also a state of transportation, with a robust infrastructure of highways, railways, and airports. Oklahoma is a state of law and government, with a unique system of tribal sovereignty and a strong tradition of democratic governance. Oklahoma is a state of symbols, with its official state bird, flower, and tree, among others. Thank you for joining us on this journey through Oklahoma. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up, and don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more fascinating facts about the United States. Until next time, take care. Oklahoma, Alkalkunk, Okelluhonk, 7 Choctaw, Oklahoma, pronounced Oklahoma 8, is a landlocked state in the south-central region of the United States. 9. It borders Texas to the south and west, Kansas to the north, Missouri to the northeast, Arkansas to the east, New Mexico to the west, and Colorado to the northwest. Partially in the western extreme of the Upland South. It is the 20th most extensive and the 28th most populous of the 50 United States. Its residents are known as Oklahomans, and its capital and largest city is Oklahoma City. The state's name is derived from the Choctaw words Okla, people, and Humma, which translates as red. 10 Oklahoma is also known informally by its nickname, the Sooner State, in reference to the Sooners, American settlers who staked their claims in formerly American Indian-owned lands until the Indian Appropriations Act of 1889 authorized the land rush of 1889, opening the land to settlement. With ancient mountain ranges, prairie, mesas, and eastern forests, most of Oklahoma lies in the Great Plains, Cross Timbers, and the U.S. interior highlands, all regions prone to severe weather. 11. Oklahoma is at a confluence of 3 major American cultural regions. Historically, it served as a government-sanctioned territory for American Indians moved from east of the Mississippi River, a route for cattle drives from Texas and related regions, and a destination for southern settlers. There are currently 25 indigenous languages spoken in Oklahoma. 12. According to the 2020 U.S. Census, 14.2% of Oklahomans identify as American Indians, the highest indigenous population by percentage in any state. 13. A major producer of natural gas, oil, and agricultural products, Oklahoma relies on an economic base of aviation, energy, telecommunications, and biotechnology. 14. Oklahoma City and Tulsa serve as Oklahoma's primary economic anchors, with nearly 2/3 of Oklahomans living within their metropolitan statistical areas. 15. Etymology. The name Oklahoma comes from the Choctaw language phrase Okla, people, and Humma, translated as red. 1016 Choctaw Nation Chief Allen Wright suggested the name in 1865 during Treaty negotiations with the federal U.S. government on the use of Indian territory. He envisioned an all-exclusive American Indian state controlled by the United States Bureau of Indian Affairs. A painting of the 1865 Council now hangs in the Oklahoma Senate. 17. Oklahoma later became the de facto name for Oklahoma Territory, and it was officially approved in 1890. 2 years after that area was opened to American settlers. 1920, the Choctaw language, Choctaw, Chata Ainam Patu, spoken by the Choctaw, an indigenous people of the southeastern woodlands, U.S., is a member of the Muskogean language family. Chickasaw is a separate, but closely related language to Choctaw. 3. The Choctaw Nation of Oklahoma published the New Choctaw Dictionary in 2016. The Choctaw Nation of Oklahoma Choctaw, Chata Okla, is a Native American reservation 5 occupying portions of southeastern Oklahoma in the United States. 6. At roughly 6,952,960 acres, 28,138 square kilometers, 10,860 for square miles, it is the second largest reservation in area after the Navajo, exceeding that of the 7 smallest U.S. states, which the seat of government is located in Durant, Oklahoma. As of 2011, the tribe has 223,279 enrolled members, of whom 84,670 live within the state of Oklahoma, 7 and 41,616 live within the Choctaw Nation's. A total of 233,126 people live within these boundaries, with its tribal jurisdictional area comprising 10.5 counties in the state. The Choctaw Nation is the 3rd largest federally recognized tribe in the United States and shares borders with the reservations of the Chickasaw, Muskogee, and Cherokee, as well as the U.S. states of Texas and Arkansas. The original territory has expanded and shrunk several times since the 19th century, reaching its current boundaries in 1867. The federal government of the United States, U.S. federal government, or U.S. government A, is the common government of the United States. The U.S. federal government is composed of 3 distinct branches: legislative, executive, and judicial. Powers of these 3 branches are defined and vested by the U.S. Constitution, which has been in continuous effect since May 4, 1789. 2. The powers and duties of these branches are further defined by acts of Congress, including the creation of executive departments and courts subordinate to the U.S. Supreme Court. In the federal division of power, the federal government shares sovereignty with each of the 50 states in their respective territories. U.S. law recognizes indigenous tribes as possessing sovereign powers while being subject to federal jurisdiction. The Bureau of Indian Affairs BIA, also known as Indian Affairs IA, 2, is a United States federal agency within the Department of the Interior. It is responsible for implementing federal laws and policies related to Native Americans and Alaska Natives, and administering and managing over 55,700 acres to 125,000 square kilometers of reservations held in trust by the U.S. federal government for indigenous tribes. It renders services to roughly 2 million indigenous Americans across 574 federally recognized tribes. 3. The BIA is governed by a director and overseen by the Assistant Secretary for Indian Affairs, who answers to the Secretary of the Interior. The BIA works with tribal governments to help administer law enforcement and justice, promote development in agriculture, infrastructure, and the economy, enhance tribal governance, manage natural resources, and generally advance the quality of life in tribal communities. For educational services are provided by Bureau of Indian Education, the only other agency under the Assistant Secretary for Indian Affairs, while health care is the responsibility of the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services through its Indian Health Service. 5-6. The BIA is one of the oldest federal agencies in the U.S., with roots tracing back to the Committee on Indian Affairs established by Congress in 1775. For 7, first headed by Benjamin Franklin, the committee oversaw trade and treaty relations with various indigenous peoples until the establishment of the Bureau of Indian Affairs by Secretary of War John C. Calhoun in 1824. The BIA gained statutory authority in 1832, and in 1849 was transferred to the newly created Department of the Interior. Until the formal adoption of its current name in 1947, the BIA was variably known as the Indian Office, the Indian Bureau, the Indian Department, and the Indian Service. For the BIA's mission and mandate historically reflected the U.S. government's prevailing policy of forced assimilation of native peoples and the annexation of their land, beginning with the Indian Self-Determination and Education Assistance Act of 1975. The BIA has increasingly emphasized tribal self-determination and peer-to-peer relationships between tribal governments and federal government. For between 1824 and 1977, the BIA was led by a total of 42 commissioners, of whom 6 were of indigenous descent. Since the creation of the position of Assistant Secretary for Indian Affairs in 1977, all 13 occupants up to the present day have been indigenous, including Bay Mills Indian Community's Brian Newland, appointed and confirmed to the position in 2021. 4. As of 2020, the majority of BIA employees are American Indian or Alaska Native, the most at any time in the agency's history. For the territory of Oklahoma was an organized incorporated territory of the United States that existed from May 2, 1890, until November 16, 1907, when it was joined with the Indian Territory under a new constitution and admitted to the Union as the State of Oklahoma. The 1890 Oklahoma Organic Act organized the western half of Indian Territory and a strip of country north of Texas known as No Man's Land, now the Oklahoma Panhandle, into Oklahoma Territory. Native American reservations in the new territory were then opened to settlement in a series of land runs in 1890, 1891, and 1893. 7 counties were defined upon the creation of the territory. They were originally designated by number and eventually became Logan, Cleveland, Oklahoma, Canadian, Kingfisher, Payne, and Beaver counties. The land run of 1893 led to the addition of Kay, Grant, Woods, Garfield, Noble, and Pawnee counties. In 1896, the Oklahoma Territory acquired Greer County, Texas, when the Supreme Court resolved the boundary case United States v. State of Texas in favor of the federal government. Today, this land in the southwest corner of the state is split into Greer, Jackson, Harmon, and part of Beckham counties. American pioneers, also known as American settlers, were European American, 1 Asian American, 2 and free African American 3 settlers who migrated westward from the 13 colonies and later the United States of America to settle and develop areas of the nation within the continent of North America for 5. The pioneer concept and ethos greatly predate the migration to the western United States, with which they are commonly associated, and many places now considered east were settled by pioneers from even further east. For example, Daniel Boone, a key figure in U.S. history, settled in Kentucky when that dark and bloody ground was still undeveloped. One important development in the Western settlement were the Homestead Acts, which provided formal legislation for settlers which regulated the settlement process with little to no concern for the inhabitants of the land. 6 pioneers also settled on land that was once inhabited by American Indian tribes. 7. Etymology: the word pioneer originates with the Middle French pionnier, originally a foot soldier or soldier involved in digging trenches, from the same root as peon or pawn. 8. In the English language, the term independently evolved a sense of being an innovator or trailblazer. 8. As early as 1664, Englishman John Evelyn used the term with a self-effacing workman meaning when he wrote in his treatise on planting, Silva, or a discourse of forest trees, I speak now in relation to the Royal Society, not myself, who am but a servant of it only and a pioneer in the works. 9. Innovation is the practical implementation of ideas that result in the introduction of new goods or services or improvement in offering goods or services. One ISO TC 279 in the standard ISO 56000 to 2020 defines innovation as a new or changed entity, realizing or redistributing value. Two others have different definitions. A common element in the definitions is a focus on newness, improvement, and spread of ideas or technologies. Innovation often takes place through the development of more effective products, processes, services, technologies, artworks, or business models that innovators make available to markets, governments, and society. Innovation is related to, but not the same as, invention. For innovation is more apt to involve the practical implementation of an invention, i.e., new, improved ability to make a meaningful impact in a market or society. 5. And not all innovations require a new invention. 6. Technical innovation often manifests itself via the engineering process when the problem being solved is of a technical or scientific nature. The opposite of innovation is exnovation. Trailblazing, or waymarking, is the practice of marking paths in outdoor recreational areas with signs or markings that follow each other at certain, though not necessarily exactly defined, distances and mark the direction of the trail. A blaze in the beginning meant a mark made on a tree by slashing the bark. The Canadian Oxford Dictionary. Originally, a waymark was any conspicuous object which serves as a guide to travelers. A landmark, Oxford English Dictionary. There are several ways of marking trails, including paint, carvings, affixed markers, posts, flagging, cairns, and crosses, with paint being the most widely used. Infantry is a specialization of military personnel who engage in warfare combat. Infantry generally consists of light infantry, irregular infantry, heavy infantry, mountain infantry, motorized infantry, mechanized infantry, airborne infantry, air assault infantry, and naval infantry. Other types of infantry, such as line infantry and mounted infantry, were once commonplace but fell out of favor in the 1800s with the invention of more accurate and powerful weapons. History of settlement efforts. Further information. Territorial evolution of the United States. Map of the United States in 1789. The first westward migrations occurred as members of the 13 colonies sought to expand their respective colonies westward. Those whose original royal charters did not specify a western limit simply extended their lands westward indefinitely. After the United States was officially formed upon the ratification of the U.S. Constitution, federal coordination and legislation began to give settlement a more unified approach. The Land Ordinance of 1785 was the first official action by the federal government in deciding how political organization of new territories would be handled. Then in 1787, the Northwest Ordinance declared that states could not individually claim new lands, and that westward expansion would be handled by the federal government. In implementing the Land Act of 1804, the government took its first steps towards legislating the manner in which land would be individually claimed by and distributed to settlers. One federal effort to encourage western travel and settlement was the publication of the Prairie Traveler in 1859, 3 years before the Homestead Act was passed. Randolph B. Marcy, captain of the U.S. Army, was commissioned by the War Department to provide a guide for those moving west. It provided not only mileage and stopping points during travel, but also gave advice about what to take on the journey, how to interact with Native Americans, and also how to respond to threatening situations such as encounters with bears. 1011 There were many other forms of this process, such as land runs, including the Land Run of 1889, when parts of the territory of Oklahoma were first made available to settlers on a first-come, first-served basis. Pre-Columbian indigenous peoples were present in what is now Oklahoma by the last ice age. 21 ancestors of the Wichita and affiliated tribes, including Tayas and Ascanyaks and Tawakoni, Tonkawa, 22 and Caddo, including Kitch-I, lived in what is now Oklahoma. Southern Plains villagers lived in the central and west of the state, with a subgroup, the Panhandle Culture people. living in the Panhandle region. Cat-owned Mississippian culture peoples lived in the eastern part of the state. Spiro Mounds, in what is now Spiro, Oklahoma, was a major Mississippian mound complex that flourished between AD 850 and 1450. 2320 for Plains Apache people settled in the southern plains and in Oklahoma between 1300 and 1500. 25 European exploration and colonization expedition of Spaniard Francisco Vázquez de Coronado traveled through the area in 1541. 26, but French explorers claimed the area in the early 18th. By the 18th century, Comanche and Kiowa entered the region from the west, and Quapaw and Osage peoples moved into what is now eastern Oklahoma. French colonists claimed the region until 1803, when all the French territory west of the Mississippi River was acquired by the United States in the Louisiana Purchase. 26. The territory was a part of the Arkansas Territory from 1819 until 1828. 28. 19th century. During the 19th century, the U.S. federal government forcibly removed tens of thousands of American Indians from their ancestral homelands from across North America and transported them to the area including and surrounding present-day Oklahoma. The Choctaw was the first of the 5 civilized tribes to be removed from the southeastern United States. The phrase Trail of Tears originated from a description of the removal of the Choctaw Nation in 1831, although the term is usually used for the Cherokee removal. 17,000 Cherokees and 2,000 of their black slaves were deported. 30. The area, already occupied by Osage and Quapaw tribes, was called for the Choctaw Nation until revised Native American and then later American policy redefined the boundaries to include other Native Americans. By 1890, more than 30 Native American nations and tribes had been concentrated on land within Indian Territory or Indian Country. 31. All 5 civilized tribes signed treaties with the Confederate military during the American Civil War. 32. The Cherokee Nation had an internal civil war. 33. Slavery in Indian Territory was not abolished until 1866. 34. In the period between 1866 and 1899, 26 cattle ranches in Texas strove to meet the demands for food in eastern cities, and railroads in Kansas promised to deliver. Cattle trails and cattle ranches developed as cowboys either drove their product north or settled illegally in Indian Territory. 26. In 1881, 5 major cattle trails on the western frontier traveled through Indian Territory. 35 Indian reservations in Oklahoma prior to the Dawes Act of 1887. Increased presence of white settlers in Indian Territory and their demand for land owned and guaranteed to Indian tribes by treaties with the U.S. government prompted the United States to enact the Dawes Act in 1887 and the Curtis Act of 1898. The acts abolished tribal governments, eliminated tribal ownership of land, and allotted 160 acres, 65 hectares of land to each head of an Indian family. An objective of the acts was the forced assimilation of Indians into white society. Land not allotted to individual Indians was owned by the U.S. government and sold or distributed to settlers and railroads. The proceeds of the land sales were used to educate Indian children and advance the policy of assimilation. As a result of the 2 acts, about 1/2 of land previously owned by Indian tribes was owned by whites by 1900. 36. Moreover, much of the land allotted to individual Indian heads of families became white-owned. Allottees often sold or were fraudulently deprived of their land. 37. The acquisition of tribal lands by the U.S. government led to land runs, also called land rushes, from 1887 and 1895. Major land runs, including the land rush of 1889, opened up millions of acres of formerly tribal lands to white settlement. The rushes began at precise times as each prospective settler literally raced with other prospective settlers to claim ownership of 160 acres, 65 hectares of land under the Homestead Act of 1862. Usually land was claimed by settlers on a first-come, first-served basis. 38. Those who broke the rules by crossing the border into the territory before the official opening time were said to have been crossing the border sooner, leading to the term Sooners, which eventually became the state's official nickname. 39. George Washington Steele was appointed the first governor of the territory of Oklahoma in 1890. 20th Century Maine articles, Organic Act section list of Organic Acts, Oklahoma Territory, admission to the Union, and list of U.S. states by date of admission to the Union. A proposed map of the state of Sequoia, compiled from the USGS map of Indian Territory 1902, attempts to create an all-Indian state named Oklahoma, and a late. Our attempt to create an all-Indian state named Sequoia failed, but the Sequoia Statehood Convention of 1905 eventually laid the groundwork for the Oklahoma Statehood Convention, which took place 2 years later. 40. On June 16, 1906, Congress enacted a statute authorizing the people of the Oklahoma and Indian Territories, as well what would become the states of Arizona and New Mexico, to form a constitution and St. 8 government in order to be admitted as a state. 41. On November 16, 1907, President Theodore Roosevelt issued Presidential Proclamation No. 780, establishing Oklahoma as the 46th state in the Union. 42. The new state became a focal point for the emerging oil industry, as discoveries of oil pools prompted towns to grow rapidly in population and wealth. Tulsa eventually became known as the oil capital of the world for most of the 20th century, and oil investments fueled much of the state's early economy. 43. In 1927, Oklahoman businessman Cyrus Avery, known as the father of Route 66, began the campaign to create U.S. Route 66, using a stretch of highway from Amarillo, Texas to Tulsa, Oklahoma to form the original portion of Highway 66. Avery spearheaded the creation of the U.S. Highway 66 Association to oversee the planning of Route 66, based in his hometown of Tulsa. 44. In late September 1918, the first cases of the Spanish flu appeared in Oklahoma, though public health authorities statewide had some indication that the pandemic was westward. The turmoil caused by the rapid advancement of the disease quickly overwhelmed both health workers and lockout governing bodies. In Oklahoma City, shortages of both supplies and personnel were mitigated, in part, by the mobilization of the American Red Cross. Rough estimates based on contemporary reports indicate that approximately 100,000 people fell ill with the disease before the pandemic ebbed in 1919. Of those 100,000 cases, it is assumed that around 7,500 proved fatal, placing total mortality rates for the state in the area of 7.5%. 45. Oklahoma also has a rich African American history. Many black towns, founded by the freedmen of the 5 tribes during Reconstruction, thrived in the early 20th century with the arrival of black exodusters who migrated from neighboring states, especially Kansas. The politician Edward P. McCabe encouraged black settlers to come to what was then Indian Territory. McCabe discussed with President Theodore Roosevelt the possibility of making Oklahoma a majority black state. 46. By the early 20th century, the Greenwood district of Tulsa was one of the most prosperous African American communities in the United States. 47. The Tulsa Race Massacre broke out in 1921, with white mobs attacking black people and carrying out a pogrom in Greenwood. In one of the costliest episodes of racist violence in American history, 16 hours of rioting resulted in the destruction of 35 city blocks, $1.8 million in property damage, and an estimated death toll of between 75 and 300 people. 51. During the 1930s, parts of the state began to suffer from the consequences of poor farming practices. This period was known as the Dust Bowl, throughout which areas of Kansas, Texas, New Mexico, and northwestern Oklahoma were hampered by long periods of little rainfall, strong winds, abnormally high temperatures, and most notably, severe dust storms sending thousands of farmers into poverty and forcing them to relocate to more fertile areas of the western United States. 53. Over a 20-year period ending in 1950, the state saw its only historical decline in population, dropping 6.9% as impoverished families migrated out of the state after the Dust Bowl. The Oklahoma City bombing of April 19, 1995, in which Timothy McVeigh detonated a large, crude explosive device outside the Alfred P. Murrah Federal Building, killed 168 people, including 19 children. For his crime, McVeigh was executed by the federal government on June 11, 2001. His accomplice, Terry Nichols, is serving life in prison without parole for helping plan the attack and prepare the explosive. 56. 21st century. On May 31, 2016, several cities experienced record-setting flooding. 5758. The former reservations of the 5 civilized tribes in dispute in McGirt v. Oklahoma. Maine, July 9, 2020, the Supreme Court of the United States determined in McGirt v. Oklahoma that the reservations of the 5 tribes, comprising much of eastern Oklahoma, were never disestablished by Congress and thus are still Indian country for the purposes of criminal law. 59. Later decisions by the Oklahoma Court of Criminal Appeals also found the Quapaw Nation, 60, Ottawa Tribe, Peoria Tribe, and Miami Tribe, 61, also had existing reservations. The Osage Nation is awaiting for a possible appellate decision after a district judge had ruled that the Osage Reservation was disestablished. 62. It is bordered on the east by Arkansas and Missouri, on the north by Kansas, on the northwest by Colorado, on the far west by New Mexico, and on the south and near west by Texas. Oklahoma's border with Kansas was defined as the 37th parallel in the 1850 for Kansas-Nebraska Act. This was disputed with the Cherokee and Osage nations, which claimed their border extended north of this line and could not be part of the Kansas Territory. This was resolved in 1870 with the Drum Creek Treaty, which re-established Kansas's southern border as the 37th parallel. This also applied to the then no-man's land that became the Oklahoma Panhandle. The Oklahoma-Texas border consists of the Red River of the South in the south and the 100th meridian west as the western border between Oklahoma and the Texas Panhandle. These were first established in the 1819 Adams-Onis Treaty between the United States and Spain. The Oklahoma Panhandle was originally part of the Panhandle of the Republic of Texas, but when Texas joined the Union as a slave state, it could not retain any lands north of 36 degrees 30 minutes, as specified in the Missouri Compromise. The Panhandle existed as a no-man's land until 1907, when Oklahoma acquired the territory upon gaining statehood. Oklahoma's eastern border is divided between Missouri and Arkansas. The Missouri-Oklahoma border is defined as the meridian passing through the Cosmith, 60 for where the Kansas River meets the Missouri River. This is the same meridian as the Kansas-Missouri border. The Oklahoma-Arkansas border was originally defined by 2 lines, the borders between Arkansas and the Cherokee and Choctaw reservations. This formed 2 diagonal lines meeting at the western edge of Fort Smith, Arkansas, with one line running northeast from the Red River and the other running southeast from the Oklahoma-Arkansas-Missouri border. The Choctaw-Arkansas border was established in the 1820 Treaty of Dokesand and later refined in the 1830 Treaty of Dancing Rabbit Creek. These treaties left a 57-acre exclave of the Choctaw Reservation bounded by Arkansas, the Arkansas River, and the Poteau River. This became the site of a smuggling camp called Coke Hill, noted mostly for its importance in cocaine smuggling. 65. After petitioning Congress to hand over jurisdiction, the 57 acres was given to Arkansas in 1905. The 1985 U.S. Supreme Court case Oklahoma v. Arkansas decided the land would remain Arkansas, even though the Choctaw had not been notified or asked about the territory being handed over. 66. Therefore, the Poteau River serves as the Oklahoma-Arkansas boundary for approximately 1 mile, reducing the Choctaw Reservation and later Oklahoma by 57 acres as established in the treaties of the Earl. Why 1800s? Topography also. List of lakes in Oklahoma. Oklahoma is between the Great Plains and the Ozark Plateau in the Gulf of Mexico watershed. 67 generally sloping from the high plains of its western boundary to the low wetlands of its southeastern boundary. 68, 69, its highest and lowest points follow this trend, with its highest peak, Black Mesa, at 4,973 feet, 1,516 meters above sea level, situated near its far northwest corner in the Oklahoma Panhandle. The state's lowest point is on the Little River near its far southeastern boundary near the town of Adable, which dips to 289 feet 88 meters above sea level. 70 among the most geographically diverse states. Oklahoma is one of 4 to harbor more than 10 distinct ecological regions, with 11 in its borders more per square mile than in any other state. 11 its western and eastern halves, however, are marked by extreme differences in geographical diversity. Eastern Oklahoma touches 8 ecological regions, and its western half contains 3. Although having fewer ecological regions, western Oklahoma contains many rare, relic species. 11 Oklahoma has for primary mountain ranges the Ouachita Mountains, the Arbuckle Mountains, the Wichita Mountains, and the Ozark Mountains. 68 contained within the U.S. Interior Highlands region. The Ozark and Ouachita Mountains are the only major mountainous region between the Rocky Mountains and the Appalachians. 71. A portion of the Flint Hills stretches into north-central Oklahoma and near the state's eastern border. The Oklahoma Tourism and Recreation Department regards Cavanal Hill as the world's tallest hill. At 1,999 feet, 609 meters, it fails their definition of a mountain by 1 foot. 70 to the semi-arid high plains in the state's northwestern corner harbor few natural forests. The region has a rolling to flat landscape with intermittent canyons and mesa ranges like the Glass Mountain. Partial plains interrupted by small Sky Island mountain ranges like the Antelope Hills and the Wichita Mountains. Southwestern Oklahoma. Transitional prairie and oak savannas cover the central portion of the state. Flora and fauna. See also list of fauna of Oklahoma. Appalachians of American bison inhabit the state's prairie ecosystems. Due to Oklahoma's location at the confluence of many geographic regions, the state's climatic regions have a high rate of biodiversity. Forests cover 24% of Oklahoma's 72 and prairie grasslands composed of shortgrass, mixed grass, and tallgrass prairie harbor expansive ecosystems in the state's central and western portions, although cropland has largely replaced native grasses. 74. Where rainfall is sparse in the state's western regions, shortgrass prairie and shrublands are the most prominent ecosystems, though pinyon pines, red cedar junipers, and ponderosa pines grow near rivers and creek beds in the panhandle's far western reaches. 70 for southwestern Oklahoma contains many rare, disjunct species, including sugar maple, big-tooth maple, nolina, and Texas live oak. 75. The state holds populations of white-tailed deer, mule deer, antelope, coyotes, mountain lions, bobcats, elk, and birds such as quail, doves, cardinals, bald eagles, red-tailed hawks, and pheasants. In prairie ecosystems, American bison, greater prairie chickens, badgers, and armadillo are common, and some of the nation's largest prairie dog towns inhabit shortgrass prairie in the state's panhandle. The Cross Timbers, a region transitioning from prairie to woodlands in central Oklahoma, harbors 351 scissor-tailed flycatcher Tyrannus forficatus, is Oklahoma's state bird vertebrate species. The Ouachita Mountains are home to black bear, red fox, gray fox, and river otter populations, which coexist with 328 vertebrate species in southeastern Oklahoma. Also in southeastern Oklahoma lives the American alligator. 70 for protected lands. Oklahoma has 51 state parks, 77 national parks or protected regions, 78 national protected forests or grasslands, 79, and a network of wildlife preserves and conservation areas. 6% of the state's 10 million acres, 40,000 square kilometers, of forest is public land. 76, including the western portions of the Ouachita National Forest, the largest and oldest national forest in the southern United States. 80, with 39,000 acres, 160 square kilometers. The Tallgrass Prairie Preserve in north-central Oklahoma is the largest protected area of tallgrass prairie in the world and is part of an ecosystem that encompasses 10% of its former land area, once covering 14 states. 81. In addition, the Black Kettle National Grassland covers 31,300 acres, 127 square kilometers of prairie in southwestern Oklahoma. 82. The Wichita Mountains Wildlife Refuge is the oldest and largest of 9 national wildlife refuges in the state. 83, and was founded in 1901, encompassing 59,020 acres to 138.8 square kilometers. 84 of Oklahoma's federally protected parks or recreational sites. The Chickasaw National Recreation Area is the largest, with 9,898.63 acres, 40.0583 square kilometers. Other sites include the Santa Fe and Trail of Tears National Historic Trails, the Fort Smith and Ouachita Battlefield National Historic Sites, and the Oklahoma City National Memorial. 78. Climate. Further information. Climate change in Oklahoma and tornadoes in Oklahoma. Oklahoma's climate is prime for the generation of thunderstorms. Winter at the Oklahoma Baptist University campus. Most of Oklahoma has a humid subtropical climate. Oklahoma is in a humid subtropical region 86 that lies in a transition zone between semi-arid further to the west, humid continental to the north, and humid subtropical to the east and southeast. Most of the state lies in an area known as Tornado Alley, characterized by frequent interaction between cold, dry air from Canada, warm to hot, dry air from Mexico and the southwestern U.S., and warm, moist air from the Gulf of Mexico. The interactions between these three contrasting air currents produces severe weather, severe thunderstorms, damaging thunderstorm winds, large hail, and tornadoes with a frequency virtually unseen anywhere else on planet Earth. 70. An average 62 tornadoes strike the state per year, one of the highest rates in the world. 87. Because of Oklahoma's position between zones of differing prevailing temperature and winds, weather patterns within the state can vary widely over relatively short distances, and they can change drastically in a short time. 70. On November 11, 1911, the temperature at Oklahoma City reached 83 F, 28 Celsius, the record high for that date. Then a cold front of unprecedented intensity slammed across the state, causing the temperature to reach 17 degrees Fahrenheit 8°C, the record low for that date, by midnight. 88. This type of phenomenon is also responsible for many of the tornadoes in the area, such as the 1912 Oklahoma tornado outbreak, when a warm front traveled along a stalled cold front, resulting in an average of about 1 tornado per hour. 89. The humid subtropical climate CFA of central, eastern Oklahoma is influenced heavily by southerly winds bringing moisture from the Gulf of Mexico. Traveling westward, the climate transitions progressively toward a semi-arid zone, BSK, in the high plains of the Panhandle and other western areas from about Lawton westward, less frequently touched by southern moisture. 86. Precipitation and temperatures decline from east to west accordingly, with areas in the southeast averaging an annual temperature of 60 to F, 17 Celsius, and an annual rainfall of generally over 40 in 120 millimeters and up to 56 in 1,420 millimeters, while areas of the higher elevation Panhandle average 58 F, 14 Celsius. with annual rainfall under 17 in 430 millimeters. 90 over almost all of Oklahoma. Winter is the driest season. Average monthly precipitation increases dramatically in the spring to a peak in May, the wettest month over most of the state, with its frequent and not uncommonly severe thunderstorm activity. Early June can still be wet, but most years see a marked decrease in rainfall during June and early July. Midsummer July and August represents a secondary dry season over much of Oklahoma, with long stretches of hot weather with only sporadic thunderstorm activity not uncommon many years. Severe drought is common in the hottest summers, such as those of 1934, 1954, 1980, and 2011, all of which featured weeks on end of virtual rainlessness and highs well over 100 degrees Fahrenheit, 38 Celsius. Average precipitation rises again from September to mid-October, representing a secondary wetter season, then declines from late October through December. 70. The entire state frequently experiences temperatures above 100 F38 Celsius or below zero. F18C. 86. Though below zero temperatures are rare in south-central and southeastern Oklahoma. Snowfall ranges from an average of less than 4 in 100 to millimeters in the south to just over 20 in 508 millimeters on the border of Colorado in the Panhandle. 70. The state is home to the Storm Prediction Center, the National Severe Storms Laboratory, the Warning Decision Training Division, and the Radar Operations Center, all part of the National Weather Service and in Norman. 91. Cities and towns. See also list of cities in Oklahoma. Oklahoma had 598 incorporated places in 2010, including for cities over 100,000 in population and 43 over 10,000. 94. Two of the 50 largest cities in the United States are in Oklahoma, Oklahoma City and Tulsa, and 65% of Oklahomans live within their metropolitan areas, or spheres of economic and social influence defined by the United States Census Bureau as a metropolitan. Oklahoma City, the state's capital and largest city, had the largest metropolitan area in the state in 2020, with 1,425,695 people, and the metropolitan area of Tulsa had 1,015,331 residents. 95. Between 2000 and 2010, the leading cities in population growth were Blanchard 172.4%, Elgin 78.2%, Jenks 77.0%, Piedmont 56.7%, Bixby 56.6%, and Owasso 56.3%. 90. For under Oklahoma law, municipalities are divided into two categories: cities, defined as having more than 1,000 residents, and towns with under 1,000 residents. Both have legislative, judicial, and public power within their boundaries, but cities can choose between a mayor-council, council-manager, or strong mayor form of government, while towns operate through an elected officer system. 97. Demographics. Main article. Demographics of Oklahoma from a 1920 U.S. Census population of 2,028,283. Oklahoma's population has continued to increase. At the 2010 census, its population was 3,751,675. A 2022 American Community Survey estimate found that the population had surpassed 4 million residents for the first time. 102. Among the states of the South Central region, Oklahoma had the second largest population increase from 2010 to 2020, behind Texas. 103 for of the state's total resident population. Approximately 236,882 were immigrants, according to a study in 2018, making up 6% of the state's population at the time. Most of its immigrant population came from Mexico 45%, Vietnam 5%, India 5%, Germany 3%, and Guatemala 3%. In the state, 246,550 residents were native-born Americans who had at least one immigrant parent. An estimated 85,000 immigrants were undocumented, with 125,989 Oklahomans having lived with at least one undocumented family member between 2010 and 2014. Immigrants to Oklahoma have contributed more than $1 billion in taxes in 2018. 105. In 2011, the U.S. Census Bureau's American Community Survey data from 2005 to 2009 indicated about 5% of Oklahoma's residents were born outside the United States. This was lower than the national figure. About 12.5% of U.S. residents were foreign-born. 106. In 2010, the center of population of Oklahoma was in Lincoln County near the town of Sparks. 107. According to HUD's 2022 Annual Homeless Assessment Report, there were an estimated 3,750 for homeless people in Oklahoma. 108. 109 race and ethnicity map of counties in Oklahoma by racial plurality, per the 2020 U.S. Census legendas. With majority of the U.S., Oklahoma has experienced diversification since the beginning of the 21st century. 110. In 1940, 90.1% of the state's population was non-Hispanic white. In 2020, 75.5% of the population was white, down from 1990's 81%, yet up from 2010's 7%. Among its population at the 2020 census, the remainder of its increasingly diverse population was 11.9% Hispanic or Latino of any race, 16% American Indian and Alaska Native, 9.7% Black or African American, 3.1% Asian, 0.4% Native Hawaiian and other Pacific Islander, and 9% some other race. According to the 2010 census, 8.6% were American Indian and Alaska Native, 7.4% Black or African American, 1.7% Asian, 0.1% Native Hawaiian and other Pacific Islander, 4.1% from some other race, and 5.9% of two or more races. 8.9% of Oklahoma's population were of Hispanic, Latino, or Spanish origin. They may be of any race. 111. In 2005, Oklahoma's estimated ancestral makeup was 14.5% German, 13.1% American, 11.8% Irish, 9.6% English, 8.1% African American, and 11.4% Native American, including 7.9% Cherokee. 115. Though the percentage of people claiming American Indian as their only race was 8.1%. 116. Most people from Oklahoma who self-identify as having American ancestry are of overwhelmingly English and Scots-Irish ancestry, with significant amounts of Scottish, Welsh, and Irish ancestry as well. 117. 118. The majority of Hispanics in Oklahoma are of Mexican origin. 119. There are 38 federally recognized Native American tribes in the state. 120. In 2011, 47.3% of Oklahoma's population younger than age 1 were minorities, meaning they had at least one parent who is not non-Hispanic white. 121. Religion. See also, the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints in Oklahoma. Boston Avenue Methodist Church in Tulsa is a National Historic Landmark. Oklahoma is part of a geographical region characterized by conservative and evangelical Protestant Christianity known as the Bible Belt. Spanning the southern and eastern parts of the United States, the area is known for politically and socially conservative views, with the Republican Party having the greater number of voters registered between the two major parties. 125. Tulsa, the state's second-largest city, home to Oral Roberts University, is sometimes called the Buckle of the Bible Belt. 126. 127. In 2000, there were about 5,000 Jews and 6,000 Muslims, with 10 congregations to each group. 128. According to the Pew Research Center in 2008, the majority of Oklahoma's religious adherents were Christian, accounting for about 80% of the population. The percentage of Catholics was half the national average, while the percentage of evangelical Protestants was more than twice the national average, tied with Arkansas for the largest percentage of any state. 1 to 9, the Cathedral of Our Lady of Perpetual Help in Oklahoma City in 2010, the state's largest church memberships were in the Southern Baptist Convention, 886,394 members. The United Methodist Church, 282,347. The Roman Catholic Church, 178,430. And the Assemblies of God, 85,926. And Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints LDS Church 130, 47,349. Other religions represented in the state include Buddhism, Hinduism, and Islam. 131 according to the Pew Research Center in 2014. The majority of Oklahoma's religious adherents remain Christian, accounting for 79% of the population, 9% higher than the national average. 132. The percentage of evangelical Protestants declined since the last study, but they remain the largest religious group in the state at 47%, over 20% higher than the national average. 132. The largest growth over the 6 years between Pew's 2008 and 2014 survey was in the number of people who identify as unaffiliated in the state, with an increase of 6% of the total population. By the 2020 Public Religion Research Institute survey, 73% of the population were Christian, 133. Evangelicalism made up 29% of the state population, followed by mainline Protestantism at 19%. Historically and predominantly African American and Latino churches collectively made up 8% of the religious demographic. An estimated 13% of the state's religious population were Roman Catholic. About 22% of the population had no religious affiliation. Incarceration at Oklahoma has been described as the world's prison capital, with 1,079 of every 100,000 residents imprisoned in 2018, the fourth highest incarceration rate of any American state, and by comparison, higher than the incarceration rates of any country in the world. 137 gender issues. In an April 2023 report, the Sentencing Project highlighted Oklahoma's failure to protect law, which has been used primarily against women and has sometimes resulted in survivors of abuse facing longer sentences for allegedly failing to protect their children from harm than the person. The report states that since the law went into effect in 2009, 139 women in Oklahoma have been imprisoned solely for failure to protect charges. 138. The Human Rights Campaign has also pointed out cases of the Oklahoma legislature's actions against the LGBTQ population and censuring of a non-binary lawmaker. 139. Economy Maine article. Economy of Oklahoma. See also Oklahoma locations by per capita income and list of Oklahoma counties by socioeconomic factors. Bach Tower of Tulsa, Oklahoma's second tallest building, serves as the world headquarters for Williams Companies. Oklahoma is host to a diverse range of sectors including aviation, energy, transportation equipment, food processing, electronics, and telecommunications. Oklahoma is an important producer of natural gas, aircraft, and food. 14. The state ranks third in the nation for production of natural gas, is the 27th most agriculturally productive state, and also ranks fifth in production of wheat. 140 for Fortune 500 companies and 6 Fortune 1000 companies are headquartered in Oklahoma. 141, and it has been rated one of the most business-friendly states in the nation. 142, with the 7th lowest tax burden in 2007. 143 total employment 2018. 1,385,228 number of employer establishments. 93,561, 144 in 2010. Oklahoma City-based Love's Travel Stops and Country Stores ranked 18th on the Forbes list of largest private companies. Tulsa-based QuickTrip ranked 37th, and Oklahoma City-based Hobby Lobby ranked 198th in 2010 report. 145 Oklahoma's gross domestic product was $250.13 billion in 2023. 146. The state had a per capita income of $58,499 in 2023, which ranked 43rd in the U.S., and its median household income ranked 46th at $59,673. 147. 148. Additionally, Oklahoma ranks consistently among the lowest states in cost of living index. 149. Though oil has historically dominated the state's economy, a collapse in the energy industry during the 1980s led to the loss of nearly 90,000 energy-related jobs between 1980 and 2000, severely damaging the local economy. 150. Oil accounted for $35 billion in Oklahoma's economy in 2007. 151. And employment in the state's oil industry was outpaced by 5 other industries in 2007. 152. As of September 2020, the state's unemployment rate was 5.3%. 153. Industry in mid-2011, Oklahoma had a civilian labor force of 1.7 million and non-farm employment fluctuated around 1.5 million. 152. The government sector provides the most jobs, with 339,300 in 2011, followed by the transportation and utilities sector, providing 279,500 jobs, and the sectors of education, business, and manufacturing, providing 207,800, 177,400, and 132,700 jobs, respectively. 152. Among the state's largest industries, the aerospace sector generates $11 billion annually. 142. Tulsa is home to the largest airline maintenance base in the world, which serves as the global maintenance and engineering headquarters for American Airlines. 154. In total, aerospace accounts for more than 10% of Oklahoma's industrial output, and it is one of the top 10 states in aerospace engine manufacturing. 14. Because of its position in the center of the United States, Oklahoma is also among the top states for logistics centers and a major contributor to weather-related research. 142. The state is the top manufacturer of tires in North America and contains one of the fastest-growing biotechnology industries in the nation. 142. In 2005, international exports from Oklahoma's manufacturing industry totaled $4.3 billion, accounting for 3.6% of its economic impact. 155. Tire manufacturing, meat processing, oil and gas equipment manufacturing, and air conditioner manufacturing are the state's largest manufacturing industries. 156. Manufacturing is the creation or production of goods with the help of equipment, labor, machines, tools, and chemical or biological processing or formulation. It is the essence of the secondary sector of the economy. One unreliable source, the term may refer to a range of human activity, from handicraft to high-tech, but it is most commonly applied to industrial design, in which raw materials from the primary sector are transformed into finished goods on a large scale. Such goods may be sold to other manufacturers for the production of other more complex products, such as aircraft, household appliances, furniture, sports equipment, or automobiles, or distributed via the tertiary industry to end users and consumers, usually through wholesalers, who in turn sell to retailers, who then sell them to individual customers. Manufacturing engineering is the field of engineering that designs and optimizes the manufacturing process, or the steps through which raw materials are transformed into a final product. The manufacturing process begins with product design and materials specification. These materials are then modified through manufacturing to become the desired product. Contemporary manufacturing encompasses all intermediary stages involved in producing and integrating components of a product. Some industries, such as semiconductor and steel manufacturers, use the term fabrication instead. to the manufacturing sector is closely connected with the engineering and industrial design industries. American Airlines, Inc. is a major airline in the United States headquartered in Fort Worth, Texas, within the Dallas-Fort Worth Metroplex, and is the largest airline in the world in terms of passengers carried and daily flights. 8 American, along with its regional subsidiaries and contractors operating under the brand name American Eagle, operate an extensive international and domestic network with almost 6,800 flights per day to nearly 350 destinations in 48 countries. 9-10. The airline is also a founding member of the One World Alliance, one of the world's 3 major airline alliances. American Airlines and American Eagle operate out of 10 hubs, with Dallas, Fort Worth International Airport DFW being the largest. The airline serves more than 200 million passengers annually and averages more than 500,000 daily. As of 2024, the company employs 103,440 staff members. Biotechnology is a multidisciplinary field that involves the integration of natural sciences and engineering sciences in order to achieve the application of organisms and parts thereof for products and services. One specialists in the field are known as biotechnologists. The term biotechnology was first used by Karoli Ericke in 1919 to refer to the production of products from raw materials with the aid of living organisms. The core principle of biotechnology involves harnessing biological systems and organisms, such as bacteria, yeast, and plants, to perform specific tasks or produce valuable substances. Biotechnology had a significant impact on many areas of society, from medicine to agriculture to environmental science. One of the key techniques used in biotechnology is genetic engineering, which allows scientists to modify the genetic makeup of organisms to achieve desired outcomes. This can involve inserting genes from one organism into another, and consequently, create new traits or modifying existing ones. 3 other important techniques used in biotechnology include tissue culture, which allows researchers to grow cells and tissues in the lab for research and medical purposes, and fermentation, which is used to produce a wide range of products such as beer, wine. The applications of biotechnology are diverse and have led to the development of products like life-saving drugs, biofuels, genetically modified crops, and innovative materials. It has also been used to address environmental challenges, such as developing biodegradable plastics and using microorganisms to clean up contaminated sites. Biotechnology is a rapidly evolving field with significant potential to address pressing global challenges and improve the quality of life for people around the world. However, despite its numerous benefits, it also poses ethical and societal challenges, such as questions around genetic modification and intellectual property rights. As a result, there is ongoing debate and regulation surrounding the use and application of biotechnology in various industries and fields. 5. Energy. A major oil-producing state. Oklahoma is the 5th largest producer of crude oil in the United States. 151. Oklahoma is the nation's 3rd largest producer of natural gas, and its 5th largest producer of crude oil. The state also has the 2nd greatest number of active drilling rigs, 151, 157, and it is even ranked 5th in crude oil reserves. 158. While the state was ranked 8th for installed wind energy capacity in 2011, 159, it still was at the bottom of states in usage of renewable energy in 2009, with 94% of its electricity being generated by non-renewable sources in 2009, including 25% from coal and 46% from natural gas. 160. 10 years later in 2019, 53.5% of electricity was produced from natural gas and 34.6% from wind power. 161, ranking 13th for total energy consumption per capita in 2009. 1. The state's energy costs were 8th lowest in the nation. 163 natural gas, also fossil gas, methane gas, and gas is a naturally occurring compound of gaseous hydrocarbons, primarily methane 95%, one small amounts of higher alkanes, and traces of carbon dioxide and nitrogen, hydrogen sulfide, and helium. 2-methane is a colorless and odorless gas, and, after carbon dioxide, is the second greatest greenhouse gas that contributes to global climate change. 3. Because natural gas is odorless. A commercial odorizer, such as methaneethyl, mercaptan brand, that smells of hydrogen sulfide, rotten eggs, is added to the gas for the ready detection of gas leaks. 5. Natural gas is a fossil fuel that is formed when layers of organic matter, primarily marine microorganisms, 6. Are thermally decomposed under oxygen-free conditions, subjected to intense heat and pressure underground over millions of years. 7. The energy that the decayed organisms originally obtained from the sun via photosynthesis is stored as chemical energy within the molecules of methane and other hydrocarbons. 8. Natural gas can be burned for heating, cooking. 9. And electricity generation, consisting mainly of methane. Natural gas is rarely used as a chemical feedstock. The extraction and consumption of natural gas is a major industry. When burned for heat or electricity, natural gas emits fewer toxic air pollutants, less carbon dioxide, and almost no particulate matter compared to other fossil fuels. 10. However, gas venting and unintended fugitive emissions throughout the supply chain can result in natural gas having a similar carbon footprint to other fossil fuels overall. 11. Natural gas can be found in underground geological formations, often alongside other fossil fuels like coal and oil, petroleum. Most natural gas has been created through either biogenic or thermogenic processes. Thermogenic gas takes a much longer period of time to form and is created when organic matter is heated and compressed deep underground. 12.7. Methanogenic organisms produce methane from a variety of sources, principally carbon dioxide. During petroleum production, natural gas is sometimes flared rather than being collected and used. Before natural gas can be burned as a fuel or used in manufacturing processes, it almost always has to be processed to remove impurities, such as water. The byproducts of this processing include ethane, propane, butanes, pentanes, and higher molecular weight hydrocarbons, hydrogen sulfide, which may be converted into pure sulfur, carbon dioxide, water vapor, and sometimes helium and nitrogen must also be removed. Natural gas is sometimes informally referred to simply as gas, especially when it is being compared to other energy sources, such as oil, coal, or renewables. However, it is not to be confused with gasoline, which is also shortened in colloquial usage to gas, especially in North America. 13. Natural gas is measured in standard cubic meters or standard cubic feet. The density compared to air ranges from 0.58 16.8 g mole, 0.71 kilograms per standard cubic meter, to as high as 0.79 20 to 0.9 grams mole, 0.97 kilograms per SCM, but generally less than 0.6 for 18.5 g mole, 0.78 kilograms per SC. For comparison, pure methane 16.0 for 25 grams mole has a density 0.5539 times that of air, 0.678 kilograms per standard cubic meter. A drilling rig is an integrated system that drills wells, such as oil or water wells, or holes for piling and other construction purposes, into the Earth's subsurface. Drilling rigs can be massive structures housing equipment used to drill water wells, oil wells, or natural gas extraction wells. Or they can be small enough to be moved manually by one person, and such are called augers. Drilling rigs can sample subsurface mineral deposits, test rock, soil, and groundwater physical properties, and also can be used to install subsurface fabrications, such as underground utilities, instrumentation, tunnels, or wells. Drilling rigs can be mobile equipment mounted on trucks, tracks, or trailers, or more permanent land or marine-based structures, such as oil platforms, commonly called offshore oil rigs, even if they don't contain a drilling rig. The term rig therefore generally refers to the complex equipment that is used to penetrate the surface of the Earth's crust. Small to medium-sized drilling rigs are mobile, such as those used in mineral exploration drilling, blast hole, water wells, and environmental investigations. Larger rigs are capable of drilling through thousands of meters of the Earth's crust, using large mud pumps to circulate drilling fluid slurry through the bit and up the casing annulus for cooling and removing the cuttings while a well is drilled. Hoists in the rig, a derrick, can lift hundreds of tons of pipe. Other equipment can force acid or sand into reservoirs to facilitate extraction of the oil or natural gas. And in remote locations, there can be permanent living accommodation and catering for crews, which may be more than 100. Marine rigs may operate thousands of miles distant from the supply base with infrequent crew rotation or cycle. Wind power is the use of wind energy to generate useful work. Historically, wind power was used by sails, windmills, and wind pumps, but today it is mostly used to generate electricity. This article deals only with wind power for electricity generation. Today, wind power is generated almost completely using wind turbines, generally grouped into wind farms and connected to the electrical grid. In 2024, wind supplied over 2,490 terawatt-hours of electricity, which was 8.1% of world electricity. One with about 100 gigawatts added during 2021, mostly in China and the United States. Global installed wind power capacity exceeded 800 gigawatts. 3 for 30 countries generated more than a tenth of their electricity from wind power in 2024, and wind generation has nearly tripled since 2015. 1. To help meet the Paris Agreement goals to limit climate change, analysts say it should expand much faster, by over 1% of electricity generation per year. 5. Wind power is considered a sustainable, renewable energy source and has a much smaller impact on the environment compared to burning fossil fuels. Wind power is variable, so it needs energy storage or other dispatchable generation energy sources to attain a reliable supply of electricity. Land-based onshore wind farms have a greater visual impact on the landscape than most other power stations per energy produced. 6-7. Wind farms sited offshore have less visual impact and have higher capacity factors, although they are generally more expensive. 2. Offshore wind power currently has a share of about 10% of new installations. 8. Wind power is one of the lowest cost electricity sources per unit of energy produced. In many locations, new onshore wind farms are cheaper than new coal or gas plants. 9 regions in the higher northern and southern latitudes have the highest potential for wind power. 10. In most regions, wind power generation is higher in nighttime and in winter when solar power output is low. For this reason, combinations of wind and solar power are suitable in many countries. 11. Renewable energy, also called green energy, is energy made from renewable natural resources that are replenished on a human time scale. The most widely used renewable energy types are solar energy, wind power, and hydropower. Bioenergy and geothermal power are also significant in some countries. Some also consider nuclear power a renewable power source, although this is controversial, as nuclear energy requires mining uranium, a non-renewable resource. Renewable energy installations can be large or small and are suited for both urban and rural areas. Renewable energy is often deployed together with further electrification. This has several benefits. Electricity can move heat and vehicles efficiently and is clean at the point of consumption. 1 to variable renewable energy sources are those that have a fluctuating nature, such as wind power and solar power. In contrast, Controllable renewable energy sources include dammed hydroelectricity, bioenergy, or geothermal power. Percentages of various types of sources in the top renewable energy producing countries across each geographical region in 2023. Renewable energy systems have rapidly become more efficient and cheaper over the past 30 years. 3. A large majority of worldwide newly installed electricity capacity is now renewable. 4. Renewable energy sources, such as solar and wind power, have seen significant cost reductions over the past decade, making them more competitive with traditional fossil fuels. 5. In most countries, photovoltaic solar or onshore wind are the cheapest new-build electricity. 6. From 2011 to 2021, renewable energy grew from 20% to 28% of global electricity supply. Power from the sun and wind accounted for most of this increase, growing from a combined 2% to 10%. Use of fossil energy shrank from 68% to 62%. 7. In 2024, renewables accounted for over 30% of global electricity generation and are projected to reach over 45% by 2030. 8-9. Many countries already have renewables, contributing more than 20% of their total energy supply, with some generating over half or even all their electricity from renewable sources. 10-11. The main motivation to use renewable energy instead of fossil fuels is to slow and eventually stop climate change, which is mostly caused by their greenhouse gas emissions. In general, renewable energy sources pollute much less than fossil fuels. 12. The International Energy Agency estimates that to achieve net zero emissions by 2050, 90% of global electricity will need to be generated by renewables. 13. Renewables also cause much less air pollution than fossil fuels, improving public health, and are less noisy. 12. The deployment of renewable energy still faces obstacles, especially fossil fuel subsidies. 14. Lobbying by incumbent power providers. 15. And local opposition to the use of land for renewable installations. 16. 17. Like all mining, the extraction of minerals required for many renewable energy technologies also results in environmental damage. 18. In addition, although most renewable energy sources are sustainable, some are not. Earth minerals and metal ores are examples of non-renewable resources. The metals themselves are present in vast amounts in Earth's crust, and their extraction by humans only occurs where they are concentrated by natural geological processes such as heat, pressure, organic activity, weathering, and other processes enough to become economically viable to extract. These processes generally take from tens of thousands to millions of years through plate tectonics, tectonic subsidence, and crustal recycling. The localized deposits of metal ores near the surface, which can be extracted economically by humans, are non-renewable in human time frames. There are certain rare earth minerals and elements that are more scarce and exhaustible than others. These are in high demand in manufacturing, particularly for the electronics industry. Oil, gas, and coal as a whole, the oil energy industry contributes $35 billion to Oklahoma's gross domestic product (GDP), and employees of the state's oil-related companies earn an average of twice the state's typical yearly income, $151. In 2009, the state had 83,700 commercial oil wells churning 65.37 per million barrels, 10,393,600 cubic meters of crude oil. 164. A tabulated 8.5% of the nation's natural gas supply is held in Oklahoma, with 1.673 trillion cubic feet, 47.4 cubic kilometers, being produced in 2009. 160 for the Oklahoma Stack Play is a geographic referenced area in the Anadarko Basin. The oil field Sooner Trend, Anadarko Basin, and the counties of Kingfisher and Canadian make up the basis for the Oklahoma Stack. Other plays such as the Eagle Ford are geological rather than geographical. 165 all of the Fortune 500 companies based in Oklahoma are energy-related, including some of the largest companies in the petroleum industry in the U.S. 141 Tulsa's ONEOK and Williams companies are the state's largest and second largest companies respectively, also ranking as the nation's second and third largest companies in the field of energy, according to Fortune magazine. 166 Oklahoma Gas and Electric, commonly referred to as OG and ENYSE, OGE operates for base electric power plants in Oklahoma. 2 of them are coal-fired power plants, one in Muskogee and the other in Red Rock. 2 are gas-fired power plants, one in Hera and the other in Kanawha. OG&E was the first electric company in Oklahoma to generate electricity from wind farms in 2003. 167 The Williams Companies, Inc. is an American energy company based in Tulsa, Oklahoma. Its core business is natural gas processing and transportation, with additional petroleum and electricity generation assets. A Fortune 500 company, to its common stock is a component of the S&P 500. The petroleum industry, also known as the oil industry, includes the global processes of exploration, extraction, refining, transportation, often by oil tankers and pipelines, and marketing of petroleum products. The largest volume products of the industry are fuel oil and gasoline petrol. Petroleum is also the raw material for many chemical products, including pharmaceuticals, solvents, fertilizers, pesticides, synthetic fragrances, and plastics. The industry is usually divided into 3 major components: upstream, midstream, and downstream. Upstream regards exploration and extraction of crude oil. Midstream encompasses transportation and storage of crude, and downstream concerns refining crude oil into various end products. Petroleum is vital to many industries and is necessary for the maintenance of industrial civilization in its current configuration, making it a critical concern for many nations. Oil accounts for a large percentage of the world's energy consumption, ranging from a low of 30% for Europe and Asia to a high of 53% for the Middle East. Other geographic regions' consumption patterns are as follows: South and Central America 40%, Africa 41%, and North America 40%. The world consumes 36 billion barrels, 5.8 cubic kilometers of oil per year, one with developed nations being the largest consumers. The United States consumed 18% of the oil produced in 2015, too. The production, distribution, refining, and retailing of petroleum taken as a whole represents the world's largest industry in terms of dollar value. Red Rock, Iowa. China Inovuj pronounced No Sud, meaning Rock Red Town, is a town in northern Noble County, Oklahoma, United States. The population was 283 at the 2010 census, a decline from 293 at the 2000 census. The headquarters of the Otoe-Missouri tribe of Indians is located in Red Rock. Hera is a city in Oklahoma County, Oklahoma, United States, and a part of the Oklahoma City metropolitan area. Located 25 miles 40 kilometers east of downtown Oklahoma City, Hera had a population of 6,245 people as of the 2020 census, a 20.6% increase from 2010. The first settler of the area, who was Potawatomi, arrived in the 1870s, but the town was not incorporated until 1908. The town was settled by Americans, Polish immigrants, and other groups, and had a cotton ginning center. The city is overseen by a city council and mayor and includes a police department and fire station. Geography main article. Geography of Oklahoma is a small city in Oklahoma with a total land area of 11.9 square miles, 31 square kilometers. All land. The city's elevation is 925 feet, 282 meters above sea level. 3. It lies partly in the Great Plains near the geographical center of the 48 contiguous states in the United States. It lies between the larger cities of Oklahoma City to the west and Shawnee to the east in Oklahoma County. Hara is located in the Cross Timbers ecoregion and the Frontier Country tourism region. For 5. The Great Plains is a broad expanse of flatland in North America. The region stretches east of the Rocky Mountains, much of it covered in prairie, steppe, and grassland. They are the western part of the interior plains, which include the mixed grass prairie, the tall grass prairie between the Great Lakes and Appalachian Plateau, and the Taiga Plains and Boreal Plains ecozones in northern Canada. Great Plains, or Western Plains, is also the ecoregion of the Great Plains or the western portion of the Great Plains, some of which in the farthest west is known as the High Plains. The contiguous United States, also referred to as the coterminous United States, consists of the 48 adjoining U.S. states and the District of Columbia of the United States in Central North America. 1-2. The term excludes the only two non-contiguous states, which are Alaska and Hawaii. They are also the last 2 states to be admitted to the Union, and all other offshore insular areas, such as the U.S. territories of American Samoa, Guam, the Northern Mariana Islands, Puerto Rico, and the U.S. Virgin Islands. 3-4. The colloquial term Lower 48-5 is also used, especially in relation to Alaska. The related but distinct term Continental United States includes Alaska, which is also on North America, but separated from the 48 states by British Columbia in Canada, but excludes Hawaii and all the insular areas in the Caribbean and the Pacific. 1/6. The greatest distance on a Great Circle route is entirely within the contiguous U.S. is 2,802 miles for 1,509 kilometers, coast to coast between Florida and the Washington state. 7. The greatest north-south line is 1,650 miles to 1,660 kilometers. 8. The contiguous United States occupies an area of 3,119,880 for 0.69 square miles, 8,080,460 for 0.3 square kilometers. Of this area, 2,959,060 for 0.4 square miles, 7,663,941.7 square kilometers is actual land, composing 83.65% of the country's total land area, and is comparable in size to the area of Australia. 9. Officially, 160,820.25 square miles for 116,520.5 square kilometers of the contiguous United States is water area, composing 60.66% of the nation's total water area. The contiguous United States, if it were a country, would be 5th on the list of countries and dependencies by area, behind Russia, Canada, China, and Brazil. However, the total area of the United States, including Alaska and Hawaii, ranks 3rd or 4th. Brazil is 166,000 square miles for 131,000 square kilometers, larger than the contiguous United States, but smaller than the entire United States, including Alaska, Hawaii, and overseas territories. The 2020 U.S. Census population of the area was 328,571,074, comprising 99.13% of the nation's total population, and a density of 111.0 for inhabitants, square mi 40.87 per square kilometers, compared to 93.8 for square mi 36.33 per square kilometers for the nation as a whole. 10. The United States of America, USA, also known as the United States, U.S. or America, is a country located. It is a federal republic of 50 states and the Federal Capital District of Washington, D.C. The 48 contiguous states border Canada to the north and Mexico to the south, with the semi-exclavic state of Alaska in the northwest and the archipelagic state of Hawaii in the Pacific Ocean. Indian country includes 574 federally recognized tribes and 326 Indian reservations with tribal sovereignty rights. The U.S. asserts sovereignty over 5 major island territories and various uninhabited islands in the Pacific Ocean and the Caribbean. It is an ecologically megadiverse country, with the world's 3rd largest land area sea and 3rd largest population, exceeding 340 million. Paleo Indians migrated to North America across the Bering Land Bridge more than 12,000 years ago and formed various cultures. Spanish Florida, the first European colony in what is now the continental U.S., was established in 1513, and later British colonization led to the first settlement of the 13 colonies in Virginia in 1607. Intensive agriculture in the rapidly expanding southern colonies encouraged the forced migration of enslaved Africans. Clashes with the British Crown over taxation and political representation sparked the American Revolution, with the Second Continental Congress formally declaring independence on July 4, 1776. The U.S. emerged victorious from the American Revolutionary War of 1775 to 1783 and expanded westward across North America, dispossessing Native Americans during the Indian Wars. The Louisiana Purchase in 1803 and the end of the Mexican-American War in 1848 saw significant territorial acquisition. As more states were admitted, a North-South division over slavery led to the secession of the Confederate States of America, which fought the Union in the American Civil War of 1861 to 1865. With the Union's victory, slavery was abolished nationally. In the late 19th century and early 20th century, the U.S. established itself as an industrial giant and great power following the Spanish-American War and World War I. After Japan's attack on Pearl Harbor in 1941, the U.S. entered World War II. Its aftermath left the U.S. and the Soviet Union as the world's superpowers. During the Cold War, both countries struggled for ideological dominance and international influence. The Soviet Union's collapse and the end of the Cold War in 1991 left the U.S. as the world's sole superpower. The U.S. national government, as established by the Constitution in 1789, is a presidential republic and liberal democracy with a separation of powers into 3 branches: legislative, executive, and judicial. The Congress, the national legislature, is composed of the House of Representatives, a lower house based on population, and the Senate, an upper house based on equal representation for each state. The federal system provides substantial autonomy to the 50 states, each with its own constitution and laws. The American political tradition is rooted in Enlightenment ideals of liberty, equality, individual rights, and the rule of law. Since the 1850s, the Democratic and Republican parties have dominated American politics. A developed country, the U.S. ranks high in economic competitiveness, productivity, innovation, and higher education. The U.S. accounted for over a quarter of nominal global economic output in 2024, and its economy has been the world's largest by nominal GDP since about 1890. It possesses the largest amount of wealth of any country and has the highest disposable household income per capita among OECD countries, though U.S. wealth inequality is one of the most pronounced in those countries. A melting pot of many ethnicities and customs, the culture of the U.S. has been shaped by centuries of immigration, and its soft power influence has a global reach. The U.S. is a member of multiple international organizations and plays a leading role in global political, cultural, economic, and military affairs. Nuclear power. In 1973, the Public Service Company of Oklahoma proposed the Black Fox nuclear power plant near Enola, Oklahoma. 169 protesters disrupted project construction in 1979, several months after the 3 Mile Island accident, and the project was canceled in 1982 after 9 years of legal challenges. 171 American Electric Power Company, Inc. AEP, Railcar Reporting Mark. AEPX is an American domestic electric utility company in the United States. It is one of the largest electric utility companies in the country, with more than 5 million customers in 11 states. The American Electric Power Company is one of the nation's largest generators of electricity, owning nearly 38,000 megawatts of generating capacity in the U.S. AEP also owns the nation's largest electricity transmission system, a nearly 39,000-mile, 63,000 kilometers network that includes 765 kilovolt ultra-high voltage transmission lines, more than all other U.S. transmission systems combined. 3AEP's transmission system directly or indirectly provides about 10% of the electricity demand in the Eastern Interconnection, the interconnected transmission system that covers 38 eastern and central U.S. states and eastern Canada, and approximately 11% of the electricity demand in the Electric Reliability Council of Texas, the transmission system that covers much of Texas. AEP's utility units operate as AEP Ohio, AEP Texas, Appalachian Power in Virginia, West Virginia, and Tennessee, Indiana Michigan Power, Kentucky Power, Public Service Company of Oklahoma, and Southwestern Electric Power Company in Arkansas, Louisiana, and East Texas. AEP's headquarters are in Columbus, Ohio. American Electric Power was the first utility to utilize 345 kilovolts transmission lines, which took place in 1953. The company ranked 185th on the 2018 Fortune 500 of the largest United States corporations by revenue. For the Black Fox nuclear power plant was a nuclear power plant proposed by the Public Service Company of Oklahoma PSO in May 1973. It was canceled in 1982. Enola is a town in Rogers County, Oklahoma, United States. It is included in the Tulsa Metropolitan Statistical Area (TMSA). The population was 1,788 at the 2010 census, with a 12.5% increase from 1,589 at the 2000 census. For Enola is a Cherokee word meaning black fox. 5. The town styles itself as the hay capital of the world. 6. The 3 Mile Island accident was a partial nuclear meltdown of the unit-reactor TMI-2 of the 3 Mile Island Nuclear Generating Station, located on the Susquehanna River in Londonderry Township, near Harrisburg, Pennsylvania. The reactor accident began at 4:00 a.m. on March 28, 1979, and released radioactive gases and radioactive iodine into the environment. 3. It is the worst accident in U.S. commercial nuclear power plant history. 4. On the 7-point logarithmic International Nuclear Event Scale, the TMI to reactor accident is rated level 5, an accident with wider consequences. 5. 6. The accident began with failures in the non-nuclear secondary system. 7. Followed by a stuck-open pilot-operated relief valve PORV in the primary system. 8. Which allowed large amounts of water to escape from the pressurized isolated coolant loop. The mechanical failures were compounded by the initial failure of plant operators to recognize the situation as a loss of coolant accident loca. TMI training and operating procedures left operators and management ill-prepared for the deteriorating situation caused by the loca. During the accident, those inadequacies were compounded by design flaws, such as poor control design, the use of multiple similar alarms, and a failure of the equipment to indicate either the coolant inventory level or the position of the stuck-open PORV. 9. The accident heightened anti-nuclear safety concerns among the general public and led to new regulations for the nuclear industry. It accelerated the decline of efforts to build new reactors. 10. Anti-nuclear movement activists expressed worries about regional health effects from the accident. 11. Some epidemiological studies analyzing the rate of cancer in and around the area since the accident did determine that there was a statistically significant increase in the rate of cancer, while other studies did not. Due to the nature of such studies, a causal connection linking the accident with cancer is difficult to prove. 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18. Cleanup at TMI started in August 1979 and officially ended in December 1993, with a total cost of about $1 billion, equivalent to $2 billion in 2024. 19TMI-1 was restarted in 1985, then retired in 2019 due to it is expected to go back into service by 2028 as part of a deal with Microsoft to power its data centers. 20. Wine Generation Mine article. Wine power in Oklahoma, U.S. state of Oklahoma, has high potential capacity for wind power in the western half of the state. In 2021, Oklahoma's installed wind generation capacity was almost 10,500 megawatts, supplying over 40% of the state's generated electricity and 85% of Oklahoma's total generating capacity from all renewable resources. Agriculture of 27th most agriculturally productive state. Oklahoma is 5th in cattle production and 5th in production of wheat. 172, approximately 5.5% of American beef comes from Oklahoma, while the state produces 6.1% of American wheat for 0.2% of American pig products and to 0.2% of dairy products. 140, the state had 85,500 farms in 2012, collectively producing for $0.3 billion in animal products and fewer than $1 billion in crop output, with more than $6.1 billion added to the state's gross domestic product. 140, poultry and swine are its second and third largest agricultural industries. 172, education. See also, list of school districts in Oklahoma, list of high schools in Oklahoma, and list of colleges and universities in Oklahoma. Oklahoma's system of public regional universities includes Northeastern State University in Tahlequah, Bizzle Memorial Library, the heart of the University of Oklahoma in Norman, with an educational system made up of public school districts and independent private institutions. Oklahoma had 638,817 students enrolled in 1,845 public primary, secondary, and vocational schools in 533 school districts as of 2008. 173, Oklahoma has the highest enrollment of Native American students in the nation, with 126,078 students in the 2009-10 school year. 174, Oklahoma spent $7,755 for each student in 2008 and was 47th in the nation in expenditures per student. 173, though its growth of total education expenditures between 1992 and 2000 to rank 22nd. 175, the state is among the best in pre-kindergarten education, and the National Institute for Early Education Research rated it first in the United States with regard to standards, quality, and access to pre-kindergarten education in 2004, calling it a model for early childhood schooling. 176, high school dropout rate decreased from 3.1% to 2.5% between 2007 and 2008, with Oklahoma ranked among 18 other states with 3% or less dropout rate. In 2004, the state ranked 36th in the nation for the relative number of adults with high school diplomas, though at 85.2%, it had the highest rate among southern states. 178, 179. According to a study conducted by the Pell Institute, Oklahoma ranks 48th in college participation for low-income students. 180, the University of Oklahoma, the University of Tulsa, Oklahoma State University, the University of Central Oklahoma, and Northeastern State University are the largest institutions of higher education in Oklahoma, each operating through one primary campus and satellite campuses throughout the state. The two state universities, along with Oklahoma City University and the University of Tulsa, rank among the country's best universities. 181, Oklahoma City University School of Law, University of Oklahoma College of Law, and University of Tulsa College of Law are the state's only ABA-accredited institutions. Both University of Oklahoma and University of Tulsa are Tier 2 institutions. with the University of Oklahoma ranked 55th and the University of Tulsa ranked 120th in the nation. 182 Oklahoma holds 11 public regional universities. 183, including Northeastern State University, the second oldest institution of higher education west of the Mississippi River. 180 for also containing the only college of optometry in Oklahoma. 185, and the largest enrollment of Native American students in the nation by percentage and amount. 180 for 186, Langston University is Oklahoma's only historically black college. 6 of the state's universities were placed in the Princeton Review's list of best 122 regional colleges in 2007. 187 and 3 made the list of top colleges for best value. The state has 55 post-secondary technical institutions operated by Oklahoma's Career Tech program for training in specific fields of industry or trade. 173. In the 2007-2008 school year, there were 181,973 undergraduate students, 20,014 graduate students, and 4,395 first professional degree students enrolled in Oklahoma colleges. Of these students, 18,892 received a bachelor's degree, 5,386 received a master's degree, and 462 received a first professional degree. This means the state of Oklahoma produces an average of 38,278 degree holders per completions component, i.e. July 1, 2007, June 30, 2008. National average is 68,320 to total degrees awarded per completions component. 188, beginning on April 2, 2018, tens of thousands of K-12 public school teachers went on strike due to lack of funding. According to the National Education Association, teachers in Oklahoma had ranked 49th out of the 50 states in terms of teacher pay in 2016. The Oklahoma legislature had passed a measure a week earlier to raise teacher salaries by $6,100, but it fell short of the $10,000 raise for teachers, $5,000 raise for other school employees, and $200 million increase in extra education funding many had sought. 189. A survey in 2019 found that the pay raise obtained by the strike lifted the state's teacher pay ranking to 34th in the nation. 190. Writing in Cherokee. The Cherokee Nation instigated a 10-year plan in 2005 that involved growing new speakers of the Cherokee language from childhood as well as speaking it exclusively at home. 191. The plan was part of an ambitious goal that in 50 years would have at least 80% of their people fluent. 192. The Cherokee Preservation Foundation has invested $3 million into opening schools, training teachers, and developing curricula for language education, as well as initiating community gatherings where the language can be actively used. 192. A Cherokee Language Immersion School in Tahlequah, Oklahoma educates students from preschool through 8th grade. 193. Culture of Pioneer Woman Statue in Ponca City by Bryant Baker, 1930. Oklahoma is placed in the South by the United States Census Bureau. 9. But other definitions place the state at least partly in the Southwest. Midwest, 194. Upland South, 195. And Great Plains. 196. Oklahomans have a high rate of English, Scotch-Irish, German, and Native American ancestry. 197. With 25 different indigenous languages spoken in the state. 12. Because many American Indians were forced to move to Indian Territory, modern-day Oklahoma. When American settlement within North America had increased, Oklahoma has much linguistic diversity. Mary Lynn, an associate professor of anthropology at the University of Oklahoma and the associate curator of Native American languages at the Sam Noble Museum, notes Oklahoma also has high levels of language endangerment. 198. 67 Native American tribes and bands are represented in Oklahoma, 26 including 38 federally recognized tribes. 199 who are headquartered and have tribal jurisdictional areas or Indian reservations in the state. 200 Native American tribes, Western ranchers, Southern settlers, and Eastern oil barons have shaped the state's cultural predisposition, and its largest cities have been named among the most underrated cultural destinations in the United States. 201 residents of Oklahoma are associated with traits of Southern hospitality. The 2006 Catalog for Philanthropy, with data from 2004, ranks Oklahomans 7th in the nation for overall generosity. 202. The state has also been associated with a negative cultural stereotype first popularized by John Steinbeck's 1939 novel The Grapes of Wrath, which described the plight of uneducated, poverty-stricken Dust Bowl-era farmers deemed Okies. 203 for, while the term is often used in a positive manner by Oklahomans, 203, it is still considered a derogatory term by many. 205 Arts further information. List of Native American artists from Oklahoma Athelbrook Museum of Art, one of the nation's top 50, 206. In the state's largest urban areas, pockets of jazz culture flourish, 207, and African American, Mexican American, and Asian American communities produce music and art of their respective cultures. 208. The Oklahoma Mozart Festival in Bartlesville is one of the largest classical music festivals on the Southern Plains. 209, and Oklahoma City's Festival of the Arts has been named one of the top fine arts festivals in the nation. 207, the state has a rich history in ballet with 5 Native American ballerinas attaining worldwide fame. These were Yvonne Chouteau, Sisters Marjorie and Maria Tallkeefe, Rosella Hightower and Mossaline Larkin, known collectively as the Five Moons. The New York Times rates the Tulsa Ballet as one of the top ballet companies in the United States. 207. The Oklahoma City Ballet and University of Oklahoma's dance program were formed by ballerina Yvonne Chouteau and husband Miguel Tarakoff. The university program was founded in 1962 and was the first fully accredited program of its kind in the United States. 210, 211, in Sand Springs, an outdoor amphitheater called Discoveryland, since closed, is the official performance headquarters for the musical Oklahoma. 212, Ridge Bond, native of McAllister, Oklahoma. 213, starred in the Broadway and international touring productions of Oklahoma. 214, 215, 216, 217, playing the role of Curly McLean in more than 2,600 performances. 214, 218. In 1953, he was featured along with the Oklahoma, cast on a CBS omnibus television broadcast. 218. Bond was instrumental in the Oklahoma title song becoming the Oklahoma State Song. 213, 219, and is also featured on the U.S. postage stamp commemorating the musical's 50th anniversary. 214, 220. Historically, the state has produced musical styles such as the Tulsa Sound and Western Swing, which was popularized at Kane's Ballroom in Tulsa. The building, known as the Carnegie Hall of Western Swing, 221, served as the performance headquarters of Bob Wills and the Texas Playboys during the 1930s. Stillwater is known as the epicenter of red dirt music, the best-known proponent of which is the late Bob Childers. Prominent theater companies in Oklahoma include, in the capital city, Lyric Theater of Oklahoma, Oklahoma City Theater Company, Carpenter Square Theater, Oklahoma Shakespeare in the Park, and City Rep. City Rep is a professional company affording equity points to those performers and technical theater professionals. In Tulsa, Oklahoma's oldest resident professional company is American Theater Company, and Theater Tulsa is the oldest community theater company west of the Mississippi. Other companies in Tulsa include Heller Theater and Tulsa Spotlight Theater. The cities of Norman, Lawton, and Stillwater, among others, also host well-reviewed community theater companies. Oklahoma is in the nation's middle percentile in per capita spending on the arts. ranking 17th, and contains more than 300 museums. 207. The Philbrook Museum of Tulsa is considered one of the top 50 fine art museums in the United States. 206. And the Sam Noble Oklahoma Museum of Natural History in Norman, one of the largest university-based art and history museums in the country, documents the natural history of the region. 207. The collections of Thomas Gilcrease are housed in the Gilcrease Museum of Tulsa, which also holds the world's largest, most comprehensive collection of art and artifacts of the American West. 223. The Egyptian art collection at the Mabijere Museum of Art in Shawnee is considered to be the finest Egyptian collection between Chicago and Los Angeles. 224. The Oklahoma City Museum of Art contains the most comprehensive collection of glass sculptures by artist Dale Chihuly in the world. 225. And Oklahoma City's National Cowboy and Western Heritage Museum documents the heritage of the American Western frontier. 207. With remnants of the Holocaust and artifacts relevant to Judaism, the Sherwin-Miller Museum of Jewish Art of Tulsa preserves the largest collection of Jewish art in the Southwest United States. 226. Festivals and Events. Oklahoma Renaissance Festival. 2017 Oklahoma Regatta Festival on the North Canadian River. 2012 Oklahoma's Centennial Celebration was named the top event in the United States for 2007 by the American Bus Association. 227 and consisted of multiple celebrations starting with the 100th anniversary of statehood on November 16, 2007. Annual ethnic festivals and events take place throughout the state, such as ceremonial events, include festivals as examples in Scottish, Irish, German, Italian, Vietnamese, Chinese, Czech, Jewish, Arab, Mexican, and African American communities depicting cultural heritage or traditions. Oklahoma City is home to a few recurring events and festivals. During a 10-day run in Oklahoma City, the State Fair of Oklahoma attracts roughly 1 million people to 128, along with the annual Festival of the Arts, such as various Latin American and Asian heritage festivals, and cultural festivals, such as the Juneteenth celebrations, are held in Oklahoma City each year. The Oklahoma City Pride Parade has been held annually in late June since 1987 in the Gay District of Oklahoma City on 39th and Penn, 229. Additionally, an annual art festival is held in the Paseo on Memorial Day weekend. 231. The Tulsa State Fair attracts more than 1 million people each year during its 10-day run. 232. And the city's Mayfest Festival entertained more than 375,000 in 4 days during 2007. In 2006, Tulsa's Oktoberfest was named one of the top 10 in the world by USA Today. Norman plays host to the Norman Music Festival, a festival that highlights native Oklahoma bands and musicians. Norman is also host to the Medieval Fair of Norman, which has been held annually since 1976 and was Oklahoma's first medieval fair. The fair was held first on the South Oval of the University of Oklahoma campus and in the third year moved to the Duck Pond in Norman until the fair became too big and moved to Reeves Park in 2003. The Medieval Fair of Norman is Oklahoma's largest weekend event and the third largest event in Oklahoma, and was selected by Events Media Network as one of the top 100 events in the nation. 230. For further information, Vacant Era Film Festival Sports. Oklahoma City Thunder of the National Basketball Association (NBA) is the state's only major league sports franchise. The state had a team in the Women's National Basketball Association, the Tulsa Shock, from 2010 through 2015, but the team relocated to Dallas-Fort Worth after that season to 135 and became the Dallas Wings. 236. Oklahoma has teams in several minor leagues, including minor league baseball at the AAA and AA levels, the Oklahoma City Comets and Tulsa Drillers, respectively, hockey's ECHL with the Tulsa Oilers, and a number of indoor football leagues. In the last-named sport, the state's most notable team was the Tulsa Talons, which played in the Arena Football League until 2012, when the team was moved to San Antonio, Texas. The Oklahoma Defenders replaced the Talons as Tulsa's only professional arena football team, playing the CPIFL. The Oklahoma City Blue of the NBA G League relocated to Oklahoma City from Tulsa in 2014, where they were formerly known as the Tulsa 66ers. Tulsa is the base for the Tulsa Revolution, which plays in the American Indoor Soccer League. 237 Enid and Lawton host professional basketball teams in the USBL and the CBA. The Oklahoma City Thunder moved there in 2008, becoming its first permanent major league team in any sport. Collegiate athletics are a popular draw in the state. The state has for schools that compete at the highest level of college sports. NCAA Division I, the Oklahoma Sooners participate in the Southeastern Conference. 238, and the Oklahoma State Cowboys and Cowgirls participate in the Big 12 Conference. 239. The Big 12 and SEC are two of the so-called Power 4 conferences of the top tier of college football. Division I FBS. The Sooners and Cowboys average well over 50,000 fans attending their football games, and Oklahoma's football program ranked 12th in attendance among American colleges in 2010, with an average of 84,738 people attending its home games. 240. The two universities meet several times each year in rivalry matches known as the Bedlam Series, which are some of the greatest sporting draws to the state. Sports Illustrated magazine rates Oklahoma and Oklahoma State among the top colleges for athletics in the nation. 241, 242 to private institutions in Tulsa. The University of Tulsa and Oral Roberts University are also Division I members. Tulsa competes in FBS football and other sports in the American Athletic Conference. 243, while Oral Roberts, which does not sponsor football. 244 is a member of the Summit League. 245. In addition, 12 of the state's smaller colleges and universities compete in NCAA Division II as members of 3 different conferences. 246, 247, 248, and 8 other Oklahoma institutions participate in the NAIA, mostly within the Sooner Athletic Conference. 249 regular LPGA tournaments are held at Cedar Ridge Country Club in Tulsa, and major championships for the PGA or LPGA have been played at Southern Hills Country Club in Tulsa, Oak Tree Country Club in Oklahoma City, and Cedar Ridge Country Club in Tulsa. 250. Rated one of the top golf courses in the nation, Southern Hills has hosted 5 PGA championships, including one in 2022, and 3 U.S. Opens, the most recent in 2001. 251 rodeos are popular throughout the state, and Guyman, in the state's Panhandle, hosts one of the largest in the nation. 250 to ESPN called Oklahoma City the center of the softball universe, specifically referring to the fast-pitch version, in a 2020 story. Oklahoma City is home to the governing body of the sport in the United States, USA Softball, which has its headquarters in a complex that also includes Devon Park. It annually hosts the Women's College World Series, the 18 final round of the NCAA Division I softball tournament. 253, Devon Park will host softball at the 2028 Summer Olympics, and the Riversport OKC Complex will host canoe slalom at the Games. 250 for college wrestling has strong tradition in Oklahoma. Oklahoma State has the most NCAA national championships of any collegiate team, with 34, with the Oklahoma Sooners having 7 NCAA wrestling titles. The National Wrestling Hall of Fame and Museum is headquartered in Stillwater. 255, a tech ball competition was held in Tulsa June 14th to 16th, 2024. 256. Sports Oklahoma City Thunder of the National Basketball Association (NBA) is the state's only major league sports franchise. The state had a team in the Women's National Basketball Association, the Tulsa Shock, from 2010 through 2015, but the team relocated to Dallas-Fort Worth after that season to 135 and became the Dallas Wings. 236 Oklahoma has teams in several minor leagues, including minor league baseball at the AAA and AA levels, the Oklahoma City Comets and Tulsa Drillers, respectively, hockey's ECHL with the Tulsa Oilers, and a number of indoor football leagues. In the last-named sport, the state's most notable team was the Tulsa Talons, which played in the Arena Football League until 2012, when the team was moved to San Antonio, Texas. The Oklahoma Defenders replaced the Talons as Tulsa's only professional arena football team, playing the CPIFL. The Oklahoma City Blue of the NBA G League relocated to Oklahoma City from Tulsa in 2014, where they were formerly known as the Tulsa 66ers. Tulsa is the base for the Tulsa Revolution, which plays in the American Indoor Soccer League. 237 Enid and Lawton host professional basketball teams in the USBL and the CBA. The Oklahoma City Thunder moved there in 2008, becoming its first permanent major league team in any sport. Collegiate athletics are a popular draw in the state. The state has four schools that compete at the highest level of college sports. NCAA Division I, the Oklahoma Sooners participate in the Southeastern Conference. 238 and the Oklahoma State Cowboys and Cowgirls participate in the Big 12 Conference. 239. The Big 12 and SEC are two of the so-called Power 4 conferences of the top tier of college football. Division I FBS. The Sooners and Cowboys average well over 50,000 fans attending their football games, and Oklahoma's football program ranked 12th in attendance among American colleges in 2010, with an average of 738 people attending its home games. 240. The two universities meet several times each year in rivalry matches known as the Bedlam Series, which are some of the greatest sporting draws to the state. Sports Illustrated magazine rates Oklahoma and Oklahoma State among the top colleges for athletics in the nation. 241, 242 to private institutions in Tulsa. The University of Tulsa and Oral Roberts University are also Division I members. Tulsa competes in FBS football and other sports in the American Athletic Conference. 243, while Oral Roberts, which does not sponsor football. 244 is a member of the Summit League. 245. In addition, 12 of the state's smaller colleges and universities compete in NCAA Division II as members of three different conferences. 246, 247, 248, and 8 other Oklahoma institutions participate in the NAIA, mostly within the Sooner Athletic Conference. 249 regular LPGA tournaments are held at Cedar Ridge Country Club in Tulsa, and major championships for the PGA or LPGA have been played at Southern Hills Country Club in Tulsa, Oak Tree Country Club in Oklahoma City, and Cedar Ridge Country Club in Tulsa. 250. Rated one of the top golf courses in the nation, Southern Hills has hosted 5 PGA championships, including one in 2022, and 3 U.S. Opens, the most recent in 2001. 251 rodeos are popular throughout the state, and Guyman, in the state's Panhandle, hosts one of the largest in the nation. 250 to ESPN called Oklahoma City the center of the softball universe, specifically referring to the fast-pitch version, in a 2020 story. Oklahoma City is home to the governing body of the sport in the United States, USA Softball, which has its headquarters in a complex that also includes Devon Park. It annually hosts the Women's College World Series, the 18th final round of the NCAA Division I softball tournament. 253, Devon Park will host softball at the 2028 Summer Olympics, and the Riversport OKC Complex will host canoe slalom at the Games. 250 for college wrestling has strong tradition in Oklahoma. Oklahoma State has the most NCAA national championships of any collegiate team, with 34. with the Oklahoma Sooners having 7 NCAA wrestling titles. The National Wrestling Hall of Fame and Museum is headquartered in Stillwater. 255. A tech ball competition was held in Tulsa June 14th to 16th, 2024. 256. The National Basketball Association is a professional basketball league in North America composed of 30 teams, 29 in the United States and 1 in Canada. The NBA is one of the major professional sports leagues in the United States and Canada and is considered the premier professional basketball league in the world. 3. The league is headquartered in Midtown Manhattan. The NBA was created on August 3, 1949, with the merger of the Basketball Association of America (BA) and the National Basketball League (NBL). The league later adopted the BAAS history and considers its founding on June 6, 1946, as its own. For 1-5. In 1976, the NBA and the American Basketball Association (ABA) merged, adding 4 franchises to the NBA. The NBA's regular season runs from October to April, with each team playing 82 games. The league's playoff tournament extends into June, culminating with the NBA Finals Championship Series. The NBA is an active member of USA Basketball (USAB). 6, which is recognized by the International Basketball Federation (FIBA) as the governing body for basketball in the United States. The NBA is the second wealthiest professional sports league in the world by revenue after the National Football League (NFL). 7. As of 2020, NBA players are the world's highest paid athletes by average annual salary per player. 8, 9, 10. The Boston Celtics have the most NBA championships with 18 and are the reigning league champions, having defeated the Dallas Mavericks in the 2024 NBA Finals. The Oklahoma City Thunder are an American professional basketball team based in Oklahoma City. The Thunder compete in the National Basketball Association (NBA) as a member of the Northwest Division of the Western Conference. 8, 9. The team plays its home games at Paycom Center. 10. The Thunder's NBA G League affiliate is the Oklahoma City Blue, which it owns 11. The Thunder are the only team in the major professional North American sports leagues based in the state of Oklahoma. 12. Oklahoma City previously hosted the New Orleans Hornets for 2 seasons following devastation caused by Hurricane Katrina in New Orleans. 13, 14. The team was originally established as the Seattle Supersonics, an expansion team that joined the NBA for the 1967-68 season. The Supersonics relocated from Seattle to Oklahoma City on July 3, 2008, after a settlement was reached between the ownership group, led by Clay Bennett, and lawmakers in Seattle following a lawsuit. 15. In Seattle, the Supersonics qualified for the NBA playoffs 22 times, won their division 6 times, advanced to 3 NBA Finals, and won the 1979 NBA championship. In Oklahoma City, the Thunder qualified for their first playoff berth during the 2009-10 season. They won their first division title as the Thunder in the 2010-11 season and their first Western Conference championship as the Thunder in the 2011-12 season, appearing in the NBA Finals for the 4th time in franchise history and first time since 1996, when the team was based in Seattle. Media Maine articles. List of newspapers in Oklahoma. List of radio stations in Oklahoma. And list of television stations in Oklahoma. The second largest newspaper in Oklahoma, the Tulsa World, has a circulation of 189,789. 271. Oklahoma City and Tulsa are the 45th and 61st largest media markets in the United States as ranked by Nielsen Media Research. The state's 3rd largest media market, Lawton Wichita Falls, Texas, is ranked 149th nationally by the agency. 272. Broadcast television in Oklahoma began in 1949 when KFOR-TV, then WKY-TV in Oklahoma City, and KOTV-TV in Tulsa began broadcasting a few months apart. 273. Currently, All major American broadcast networks have affiliated television stations in the state. 274. The state has two primary newspapers. The Oklahoman, based in Oklahoma City, is the largest newspaper in the state and 54th largest in the nation by circulation, with a weekday readership of 138,493 and a Sunday readership of 200,690. The Tulsa World, the second most widely circulated newspaper in Oklahoma and 79th in the nation, holds a Sunday circulation of 130,969 and a weekday readership of 93,558. 271. Oklahoma's first newspaper was established in 1844, called the Cherokee Advocate, and was written in both Cherokee and English. 275. In 2006, there were more than 220 newspapers in the state, including 177 with weekly publications and 48 with daily publications. 275. The state's first radio station, WKY in Oklahoma City, began broadcasting in 1920. 276. In 2006, there were more than 500 radio stations in Oklahoma broadcasting with various local or nationally owned networks. 5 universities in Oklahoma operate non-commercial public radio stations and networks. 277. Oklahoma has a few ethnic-oriented TV stations broadcasting in Spanish and Asian languages, and there is some Native American programming. TBN, a Christian religious television network, has a studio in Tulsa and built its first entirely TBN-owned affiliate in Oklahoma City in 1980. 278. Transportation Road Network and Waterways of Oklahoma, from the 1970 edition of the National Atlas Transportation in Oklahoma, is generated by an anchor system of interstate highways, intercity rail lines, airports, inland ports, and mass transit networks. Situated along an integral point in the United States interstate network, Oklahoma contains 3 primary interstate highways and 4 auxiliary interstate highways. In Oklahoma City, Interstate 35 intersects with Interstate 44 and Interstate 40, forming one of the most important intersections along the United States highway system. 279. More than 12,000 miles, 19,000 kilometers of roads make up the state's major highway skeleton, including state-operated highways, 10 turnpikes, or major toll roads. 279. And the longest drivable stretch of Route 66 in the nation. 280. In 2008, Interstate 40 for Oklahoma City was Oklahoma's busiest highway, with a daily traffic volume of 123,300 cars. 281. In 2010, the state had the nation's 3rd highest number of bridges classified as structurally deficient, with nearly 5,212 bridges in disrepair, including 235 National Highway System bridges. 282. Oklahoma's largest commercial airport is Will Rogers World Airport in Oklahoma City, averaging a yearly passenger count of more than 3.5 million, 1.7 million boardings in 2010. 283. Tulsa International Airport, the state's 2nd largest commercial airport, served more than 1.3 million boardings in 2010. 284. Between the two, 6 airlines operate in Oklahoma. 285. In terms of traffic, Art L. Jones Jr. Riverside Airport in Tulsa is the state's busiest airport, with 335,826 takeoffs and landings in 2008. 287. Oklahoma has more than 150 public-use airports. 288. Oklahoma is connected to the nation's rail network via Amtrak's Heartland Flyer, its only regional passenger rail line. It currently stretches from Oklahoma City to Fort Worth, Texas. Lawmakers began seeking funding in early 2007 to connect the Heartland Flyer to Tulsa. 289, but nothing came of this. In June 2023, following studies and negotiations, Oklahoma and Kansas state officials began seeking federal approval and funding to extend the Heartland Flyer from Oklahoma City to Newton, Kansas. The two locations are currently connected by an Amtrak Thruway bus route that includes a stop in Wichita, Kansas. 290. In November 2023, KDOT said the service would start in 2029 if approved, but could begin sooner were the project to be fast-tracked. 291 to inland ports on rivers serve Oklahoma, the Port of Muskogee, and the Tulsa Port of Catoosa. The Tulsa Port of Catoosa is one of the United States' most inland international ports, at head of navigation of the McClellan-Kerr, Arkansas River Navigation System, which connects barge traffic from Tulsa and Muskogee to the Mississippi River. 290 to the port ships over 2 million tons of goods annually and is a designated foreign trade zone. The Dwight D. Eisenhower National System of Interstate and Defense Highways, commonly known as the Interstate Highway System or the Eisenhower Interstate System, is a network of controlled access highways that forms part of the National Highway System in the United States. The system extends throughout the contiguous United States and has roots in Hawaii, Alaska, and Puerto Rico. In the 20th century, the United States Congress began funding roadways through the Federal Aid Road Act of 1916 and started an effort to construct a national road grid with the passage of the Federal Aid Highway Act of 1921. In 1926, the United States Numbered Highway System was established, creating the first national road numbering system for cross-country travel. The roads were funded and maintained by U.S. states, and there were few national standards for road design. United States numbered highways ranged from two-lane country roads to multi-lane freeways. After Dwight D. Eisenhower became president in 1953, his administration developed a proposal for an interstate highway system, eventually resulting in the enactment of the Federal Aid Highway Act of 1956. Unlike the earlier United States numbered highway system, the interstates were designed to be all freeways with nationally unified standards for construction and signage. While some older freeways were adopted into the system, most of the routes were completely new. In dense urban areas, the choice of routing destroyed many well-established neighborhoods, often intentionally as part of a program of urban renewal. 3. In the 2 decades following the 1956 Highway Act, the construction of the freeways displaced 1 million people, and as a result of the many freeway revolts during this era, several planned interstates were abandoned or rerouted to avoid urban cores. Construction of the original interstate highway system was proclaimed complete in 1992, despite deviations from the original 1956 plan and several stretches that did not fully conform with federal standards. The construction of the interstate highway system cost approximately $114 billion, equivalent to $618 billion in 2023. The system has continued to expand and grow as additional federal funding has provided for new routes to be added, and many future interstate highways are currently either being planned or under construction. Though heavily funded by the federal government, interstate highways are owned by the state in which they were built. With few exceptions, all interstates must meet specific standards, such as having controlled access, physical barriers, or median strips between lanes of oncoming traffic, breakdown lanes, avoiding at-grade intersections, no traffic lights, and complying with federal traffic sign specifications. Interstate highways use a numbering scheme in which primary interstates are assigned 1 or 2-digit numbers, and shorter routes, which branch off from longer ones, are assigned 3-digit numbers where the last 2 digits match the parent route. The interstate highway system is partially financed through the Highway Trust Fund, which itself is funded by a combination of a federal fuel tax and transfers from the Treasury's General Fund. 5. Though federal legislation initially banned the collection of tolls, some interstate routes are toll roads, either because they were grandfathered into the system or because subsequent legislation has allowed for tolling of interstates in some cases. As of 2022, about 1/4 of all vehicle miles driven in the country use the interstate highway system, 6, which has a total length of 48,890 miles, 78,680 kilometers. In 2022 and 2023, the number of fatalities on the interstate highway system amounted to more than 5,000 people annually, with nearly 5,600 fatalities in 2022. 7. OKC Will Rogers International Airport 3 IATA, OKC, ICAO, KOKC, FAA LID, OKC, also known as Will Rogers Airport or simply Will Rogers, is a passenger airport located in Oklahoma City, Oklahoma, United States, about 6 miles 10 kilometers southwest of the city's downtown area. It is a civil military airport on 8,081 acres, 12.63 square miles of land. For 5. Although the official IATA and ICAO airport codes for OKC Will Rogers International Airport are OKC and KOKC, it is common practice to refer to it as WRWA or Will Rogers. The airport is named for comedian and legendary cowboy Will Rogers, an Oklahoma native who died in an airplane crash near Utqiagvik, Alaska in 1935. 6. The city's other major airport, Wiley Post Airport, along with the Wiley Post Will Rogers Memorial Airport in Utqiagvik, are named for Wiley Post, who also died in the same crash. The airport was the only airport to use World in its designation. Although Will Rogers offers U.S. Customs and Border Protection (CBP) services for customs and immigration, international flights will not begin until November 8, 2025. A new customs facility will open earlier in 2025. 7. OKC Will Rogers International Airport is the busiest commercial airport in the state of Oklahoma. In 2019, the airport handled nearly 2 million passengers, marking the busiest year on record 3 years in a row. 8. Southwest Airlines carries the most passengers at OKC Will Rogers International Airport, with a market share of nearly 48% as of April 2022. 9. Tulsa International Airport IATA, TUL, ICAO, KTUL, FAA LID, TUL is a civil military airport 5 miles 8 kilometers northeast of downtown Tulsa, in Tulsa County, Oklahoma, United States. It was named Tulsa Municipal Airport when the city acquired it in 1929, for it received its present name in 1963. 5. While Tulsa International Airport only serves domestic destinations, it is still an international airport since it has Customs and Border Patrol facilities. 6. The 138th Fighter Wing of the Oklahoma Air National Guard is based at the co-located Tulsa Air National Guard Base. 7. The airport is the global maintenance headquarters for American Airlines. 8. During World War II, Air Force Plant No. 3 was built on the southeast side of the airport, and Douglas Aircraft manufactured several types of aircraft there. After the war, this facility was used by Douglas, later McDonnell Douglas, and Rockwell International, later Boeing, for aircraft manufacturing, modification, repair, and research. 9. Spirit Aerosystems currently builds commercial airline parts for Boeing Aircraft 10 in part of the building, and IC Bus Corporation assembles school buses in the other part. 11. Spirit Aerosystems also builds Boeing wing and floor beam parts and Gulfstream wing parts in a facility on the east side of the airport, just north of runway 26. 10. The Tulsa Air and Space Museum is on the northwest side of the airport. Tulsa Riverside Airport IATA, RVS-1, ICAO, KRVS, FAA LID. RVS is a city-owned, public-use airport located 5 nautical miles, 6 miles, 9 kilometers south of the Central Business District of Tulsa, a city in Tulsa County, Oklahoma, United States. 2. The facility was known as Richard Lloyd Jones Jr. Airport for several decades, but was formally renamed in January 2022 to reduce confusion with another airport in Oklahoma. 3. In the National Plan of Integrated Airport Systems for 2021 to 2025, Riverside is classed as a national-level non-primary airport and a reliever airport for Tulsa International. For national non-primary airports are those that serve primarily general aviation users in metropolitan areas near major business centers and have high traffic, including many jets and multi-engine air. The airport is the busiest in Oklahoma in terms of takeoffs and landings, more than 223,300 in 2023. The airport averaged 530 for operations per day for the 12-month period ending October 10, 2018, making it considerably busier than Tulsa International, which has an average 250 for operations per day, 7-0. Our Oklahoma City's Will Rogers World Airport, which has an average 300 to operations per day, 8. Law and Government Mine article. Government of Oklahoma, Oklahoma State Capital in Oklahoma City. Oklahoma is a constitutional republic with a government modeled after the federal government of the United States, with executive, legislative, and judicial branches. 293. The state has 77 counties with jurisdiction over most local government functions within each respective domain. 69 congressional districts, and a voting base with a majority in the Republican Party. 294. State officials are elected by plurality voting in the state of Oklahoma. Oklahoma has capital punishment as a legal sentence, and the state has had between 1976 through mid-2011 the highest per capita execution rate in the nation. 295 authorized methods of execution include the electric chair, the gas chamber, and the firing squad. 296. In a 2020 study, Oklahoma was ranked as the 14th most difficult state for citizens to vote in. 297. In May 2020, it became the first state to enact an anti-red flag law, prohibiting the acceptance of any grants or funding to enact red flag laws. 298. 299. Abortion in Oklahoma is illegal in nearly all circumstances. 300 state governments. He also Governor of Oklahoma, Oklahoma Legislature, and Oklahoma Supreme Court. Legislature of Oklahoma consists of the Senate and the House of Representatives. As the lawmaking branch of the state government, it is responsible for raising and distributing the money necessary to run the government. The Senate has 48 members serving 4-year terms, while the House has 101 members with 2-year terms. The state has a term limit for its legislature that restricts any one person to 12 cumulative years service between both legislative branches. 300 to Oklahoma's judicial branch consists of the Oklahoma Supreme Court, the Oklahoma Court of Criminal Appeals, and 77 district courts that each serve one county. The Oklahoma Judiciary also contains 2 independent courts, a court of impeachment for impeachment trials, and the Oklahoma Court on the Judiciary. Oklahoma has 2 courts of last resort. The state Supreme Court hears civil cases, and the State Court of Criminal Appeals hears criminal cases. This split system exists only in Oklahoma and neighboring Texas. Judges of those 2 courts, as well as the Court of Civil Appeals, are appointed by the governor upon the recommendation of the State Judicial Nominating Commission, and are subject to a nonpartisan retention vote on a 6-year rotating schedule. 301. The executive branch consists of the governor, their staff, and other elected officials. The principal head of government, the governor, is the chief executive of the Oklahoma executive branch, serving as the ex officio commander-in-chief of the Oklahoma National Guard when not called into federal use, and reserving the power to veto bills passed through the legislature. The responsibilities of the executive branch include submitting the budget, ensuring state laws are enforced, and ensuring peace within the state is preserved. 303 Local government. See also List of counties in Oklahoma. The state is divided into 77 counties that govern locally, each headed by a 3-member council of elected commissioners, a tax assessor, clerk, court clerk, treasurer, and sheriff. 304. While each municipality operates as a separate and independent local government with executive, legislative, and judicial power, County governments maintain jurisdiction over both incorporated cities and non-incorporated areas within their boundaries and have executive power but no legislative or judicial power. Both county and municipal governments collect taxes, employ a separate police force, hold elections, and operate emergency response services within their jurisdiction. 97,305. Other local government units include school districts, technology center districts, community college districts, rural fire departments, rural water districts, and other special use districts. 39 Native American tribal governments are based in Oklahoma, each holding limited powers within designated areas. While Indian reservations are typical in most of the United States, they are not present in Oklahoma. Tribal governments hold land granted during the Indian Territory era, but with limited jurisdiction and no control over state governing bodies such as municipalities and counties. Tribal governments are recognized by the United States as quasi-sovereign entities with executive, judicial, and legislative powers over tribal members and functions, but are subject to the authority of the United States Congress to revoke or withhold certain powers. The tribal governments are required to submit a constitution and any subsequent amendments to the United States Congress for approval. 306-307 Oklahoma has 11 sub-state districts, including the two large councils of governments, Incog and Tulsa Indian Nations Council of Governments and a COG Association of Central Oklahoma Governments. National Politics Further Information. Political party strength in Oklahoma article. Politics of Oklahoma during the first half-century of statehood. Oklahoma was considered a Democratic stronghold, being carried by the Republican Party in only two presidential elections, 1920 and 1928. After the 1948 election, the state turned firmly Republican. Although registered Republicans were a minority in the state until 2015, 308 Oklahoma has been carried by Republican presidential candidates in all but one election since 1952. Lyndon B. Johnson's 1964 landslide victory. In fact, it was the only state where Barack Obama failed to carry any counties in 2008. Oklahoma City was the largest city in the United States, carried by Republican Donald Trump in both the 2016 and 2020 elections. Democrats are strongest in urban areas, such as the inner parts of Oklahoma City and Tulsa, as well as the college towns of Norman and Stillwater, and areas which are most heavily African American. The party once held dominance in the eastern part of the state and Little Dixie before the area gradually shifted Republican in the late 2000s. As of the 2020 election, Native American voters, 16% of the state's population, are split, with urban populations supporting the Democrats and rural reservation populaces favoring the Republicans. 309 following the 2000 census. The Oklahoma delegation to the U.S. House of Representatives was reduced from 6 to 5 representatives, each serving one congressional district. Oklahoma has had an all-Republican congressional delegation since 2021 and previously from 2013 to 2019. State symbol. See also, list of Oklahoma state symbol. State law codifies Oklahoma's state emblems and honorary positions. 329 The Oklahoma Senate or House of Representatives may adopt resolutions designating others for special events and to benefit organizations. In 2012, the House passed H.C.R. 1024, which would change the state motto from Labor Omnia Vincit to Oklahoma in God We Trust. The author of the resolution stated a constituent researched the Oklahoma Constitution and found no official vote regarding Labor Omnia Vincit, therefore opening the door for an entirely new motto. 330-331. This is a list of Oklahoma state symbols, including official and unofficial. The official symbols are codified by statute. Many of the unofficial symbols are defined by Oklahoma Senate or House of Representative resolutions.